Chapter 1. Mr. Beecher, you are under arrest for inappropriate conduct involving a minor. Please stand up and put your hands behind your back. Mark Beecher shot a defiant look at the officer, but stood as asked, waiting as the handcuffs were put on him. While this happened, the second officer, a woman, began, "You have the right to remain silent." "Oh, no," Stephanie Cross cried out as she stood up from the sofa next to Beecher. "What did she tell you?" "Ma'am," replied the first officer, "your daughter provided enough information for us to take Mr. Beecher into custody and to start the process for her protection. An investigator from the Department of Social Services has been called and should arrive to explain everything to you shortly. Meanwhile, your daughter will go with my partner to the station and stay in protective custody until the investigation is over and the judge makes a decision." Stephanie sat back down on the sofa and put her face in her hands, whispering, "This can't be happening." The first officer ignored her and led Mark Beecher out of the front door of the Cross house, placing him in the back seat of the patrol car. Once the door was closed and locked, he called his partner over the radio to let them know it was safe to bring the girl out. "Mindy, the police are taking me for protection. I'll explain when I see you. I love you, Dad." Walker Cross kept glancing at the text from his 13-year-old daughter as he left the hotel parking garage. He quickly typed a reply, but it didn't go through, meaning Mindy's phone must have been turned off right after she sent it. He hoped Stephanie would have more information. After 3 rings, Stephanie answered her phone. "What do you want, Walker?" Walker struggled to keep his anger in check at her tone. "Where's Mindy?" he asked sharply. "I didn't ask, and they didn't tell me," Stephanie responded defensively. "Well, what happened for her to text me that she is in police protection?" "You'll have to ask her. She was supposed to be at that new friend's house, Jocelyn, but she came home while I was in the bathroom. Then, 2 police officers knocked on the door. They talked with Mindy for about 30 minutes and took her with them. An investigator from Social Services is supposed to visit me, but I don't know why." Walker wasn't surprised Mindy hadn't talked to her mother. Their connection had been strained, just like his and Stephanie's. "Okay, I'm cutting my trip short. I'll be back in about 3 hours. If you find out where they have taken Mindy, please call me." Walker rarely traveled for work, and this overnight trip to Charlotte wasn't important enough to keep him away from his daughter. Something was wrong, and he needed to be there for her. He always had been when she wanted or needed him, and tonight would be no different. The memory of a painful day 9 years ago came back to him. It was the first time he had discovered Stephanie's betrayal, and he was determined it would be the last time. As he carried his bags out the front door to his waiting car, 3-year-old Mindy ran after him, crying, "Daddy, don't walk so fast." Seeing his upset daughter made Walker realize what he would lose by divorcing Stephanie. Mindy was too young to understand why her father would leave her, and she would have to navigate a childhood with limited time with him. The laws about custody usually favored the mother, meaning Stephanie would likely keep the house. Walker might only see Mindy every 2 weeks and on some holidays, if Stephanie was cooperative, which she had promised not to be after he confronted her about her unfaithfulness. If things went as Stephanie suggested, she would get full custody of Mindy and decide how often he could see her and what role he would have in her life. Walker's pride and personal happiness felt like a big price to pay to keep Mindy in his life, but he had been paying that price for 9 years. During that time, Walker and Stephanie had lived more like roommates. They shared a bed to keep up the appearance of a happy family for Mindy and other relatives, but Walker had turned down the few attempts at intimacy that Stephanie had made. He didn't catch Stephanie in any other affairs, but he admitted he hadn't put much effort into watching her. He simply didn't care much about her actions outside their home. Instead, Walker poured all his time and affection into Mindy. Meanwhile, Stephanie had let Walker take the lead in parenting, allowing her to focus on her work. She still showed interest in Mindy's life and made sure to go to important school and social events. In the last few months, Mindy had started asking questions about Walker and Stephanie's relationship. When she turned 13, she had sleepovers with her friends, which made her notice how differently her parents interacted compared to the parents of her friends. Walker and Stephanie never hugged or kissed, never went out just as a couple, didn't celebrate anniversaries, and rarely did nice things for each other. This made their relationship seem odd to Mindy. While driving 3 hours back home, Walker wondered if Stephanie had shared more with Mindy than he had, and if so, how she had described it. So far, he had reassured Mindy that both her father and mother loved her and wanted her to be happy. Walker had told Mindy that he loved her mother, and that was true. On the day Mindy was born, no man could have loved a woman more than Walker loved Stephanie. If Mindy asked her father if he loved Stephanie, he might not give a different answer. Even if Walker treated Stephanie with indifference most of the time, he couldn't deny that she could affect him more deeply than anyone else. "I find it hard to believe Mark would do what you say my daughter is accusing him of," Stephanie said. "He works with young girls her age every day, and there has never been any sign of trouble." Mark Beecher was the science teacher at the exclusive prep school where Stephanie was the head administrator. Her official title of head mistress wasn't used much anymore, so most people called her Principal Cross. Those who had faced her discipline understood why that name fit. She was strict and would have known about any trouble between teachers or students, but nothing had come to her attention. Stephanie, having met Mark's charming fiancée, saw how taken he was with the older woman. It made her wonder how many men were attracted to both older women and younger girls at the same time. "I understand," said Fern Blaze, the social services investigator, "but you admitted you were not home when your daughter said he came into her room and showed himself to her." "No, I was in the shower. I didn't even know Mindy was home until the police knocked on the door. I had just gotten out of the shower and was moving laundry. When I answered, Mark was sitting in the living room checking his phone. He seemed fine." "Your daughter's version of the events is very consistent and detailed. I'm afraid she needs to have a special interview at the Children's Recovery Center. The counselors there are skilled in helping children share their experiences. For now, we will assume her claims are serious and need attention." Stephanie sighed and asked, "Will Mindy be allowed to come home?" "I'm afraid not, at least not while you live here." "What does that mean?" Stephanie cut in. "I'm her mother. Why does my living here matter?" Fern chose her words carefully. "The police report and my report show that you did not protect your daughter. You allowed a man she didn't know to be alone with her. Mindy also says she doesn't feel safe being alone with you. Whether this was an accident or neglect is yet to be decided. Until then, there will be a safety plan for Mindy that prevents you from being alone with her. If her father can take care of her, the court is likely to place her with him." "You think I let Mark do something bad to Mindy while I didn't even know she was home? I told you I was unaware." Fern nodded. "That's why I am only recommending a finding of physical neglect against you for now. If the special interview shows you were more involved, that might change. Our policy is to be cautious in cases like this." Stephanie felt a wave of panic. If she accepted or was found guilty of neglect, it could force her name into a state database for child neglect and abuse. She was just beginning to understand how serious this was when she heard the garage door opener. Before she could process it, the door connecting the kitchen and garage flew open, and her husband walked in. Or rather, a very angry man who looked like her husband. "Where is Mindy?" Walker yelled at Stephanie. He noticed the woman sitting across from her and asked in a calmer tone, "Are you from social services?" "Yes, I'm investigator Fern Blaze. Are you Mr. Cross?" Walker sighed and replied, "Yes, I am Mindy's father. Do you know where she is? Can I see her?" "I need to ask you a few questions before I can answer you, if that's okay," Fern said. Walker leaned against the kitchen counter. "I don't understand what's happening, but I'm willing to answer any questions you have. Can you tell me what is going on so I have some background?" "Of course," Fern replied. "The details are still unclear, but your daughter Mindy claims that when she came home this evening, she was approached by someone. Mindy says she went straight to her room after arriving, but a strange man followed her in. He entered her room without permission and behaved inappropriately. When she tried to push him out and close the door, he touched her in a way that made her uncomfortable. After managing to close her bedroom door, she called 911. The officers found a man in your home who had only partially dressed. He has been arrested, and your daughter is safe with us now." Walker glared at Stephanie. "You brought someone like that into our house with Mindy here? What have you done?" I, Stephanie stuttered. She had never seen Walker so angry and didn't know how to respond. "Never mind," Walker said harshly. "I'll talk to you later." He turned to the investigator and asked more calmly, "What do you need from me?" "First," Fern said, "are you the biological father of Mindy Cross?" "Yes, I am, and I have the DNA test results to support that," Walker replied. This shocked Stephanie. They had tested Mindy when she was 6 months old to check for certain genetic markers, and fortunately those markers were not present. But she hadn't realized that Walker would see the test as proof of his relationship with Mindy. A pang of guilt hit her because she felt he shouldn't have to verify that. The truth was, she had never been with anyone else during their 14 years of marriage. After their relationship soured in the past 9 years, she knew Walker wouldn't believe her, especially now, so there was no point in insisting. Fern interrupted her thoughts and spoke to Walker. "I understand you were away on a business trip. Were you aware that your wife had someone over this evening?" "Yes, I was in Charlotte for an overnight trip for a morning meeting. But no, I don't keep track of Stephanie's social life, which seems to be a mistake this time." "Do you travel often or have other obligations that might affect your ability to care for Mindy?" Fern asked. "Not at all. Nothing is more important to me than what Mindy needs," Walker said firmly. An investigation would easily show how dedicated he was to his daughter. As a successful CPA with a busy firm and a great team, he had managed to always prioritize quality time with Mindy. Fern nodded. "All right, let me explain what will happen next. Tomorrow, or the day after at the latest, there will be a hearing in family court. Here is a notice about the hearing for both of you. If it is postponed tomorrow, you will be informed." She handed each of them a yellow paper that Walker thought looked like a traffic ticket. "You, Mrs. Cross, and Mr. Beecher will be listed as defendants, with DSS as the plaintiff. My department will be looking for evidence of serious risks regarding Mr. Beecher for abuse and Mrs. Cross for neglect. You, Mr. Cross, will be listed as a defendant because we need to identify you as the protector of the child, so you must be part of the case." "I understand," Walker said. Stephanie lowered her head and began to cry. If the judge finds there is enough reason to take action, which is almost certain when law enforcement starts the emergency procedures, the judge will likely allow you to keep custody of Mindy as long as the other defendants do not contact her. Mindy will need to have a special interview to check the truth of what she said, and the outcome of that interview will guide our next steps. "When can I see Mindy?" Walker asked. "If you understand and agree that your daughter cannot have contact with either your wife or Mark Beecher, I can let Mindy go home with you tonight. You'll need to sign this safety plan to show your acceptance of the terms. Mindy is currently at the law enforcement center waiting for a temporary foster home, but sending her home with you would mean less paperwork." Walker pushed away from the counter and asked, "So, as long as she isn't here, Mindy can stay in her own bed tonight and the police will make sure of that?" Stephanie put her head down on the table and covered it with her arms as Fern Blay replied, "Well, to put it simply, yes." "Get out!" Walker shouted at Stephanie. "I don't care where you go or how you get there. If you're not out of this house by the time I return with my daughter, there will be consequences." Speaking to the DSS investigator in a softer tone, he said, "Please inform the police that I am going to pick up my daughter." Without waiting for a response from either Stephanie or the DSS investigator, Walker headed for the garage. He could reach the law enforcement center in 10 minutes and then take Mindy out for a late dinner or ice cream. That should give Stephanie enough time to gather her things and leave. "Why did you decide to stay over at Jocelyn's on a school night?" Walker asked his daughter. Father and daughter were quietly talking in a booth at a nearly empty restaurant while eating ice cream. It had been almost an hour since Walker left their house, and he wanted to make sure Stephanie was gone by the time they got back. "I don't know where Mom got the idea that I would be spending the night at Jocelyn's. I texted her that I was going over after school to work on a project and that I would probably have dinner there, but I never said I would sleep over. I didn't even bring extra clothes with me." Anyone checking either Mindy's or her mother's cell phone would see the text Mindy sent. However, they would not see the call from Jocelyn's home phone to the Cross residence, where Mindy had actually told her mother she would be sleeping at her friend's house. Without that call as proof, Mindy's story couldn't easily be challenged. Walker had always trusted his daughter more than his wife. He had doubts about Stephanie for many years and believed Mindy before anyone else. "Is that buzzing sound your phone, Dad?" Mindy asked. Walker suddenly felt the vibration in his pocket. He took out his phone and quickly read the message. "Is the project you and Jocelyn worked on due tomorrow?" "No, it's due next week. It's almost finished." "Why?" Mindy replied. "It looks like you won't go to school tomorrow," he said. "I need to take you to the Children's Recovery Center for your interview at 9 a.m. Mindy finished her ice cream before she asked, "Is that where they figure out if what happened to me tonight was real or if I'm imagining it?" The detective had talked to Walker earlier about the process, and now he was thinking of how to explain it to Mindy. "Most of the questions will be to understand your maturity and knowledge. They will ask about your understanding of the differences between truth and lies, and about bodies. You will need to explain what happened in your own words, and they will write it down. But first, they will do a physical checkup." "Why?" Mindy asked. "The guy didn't really touch me, so I don't see why that's necessary." "It's part of the process," Walker explained, avoiding her comment. "Sometimes kids hold back on what happened out of fear or embarrassment. The checkup can help make sure nothing important is missed." Walker didn't think Mindy would struggle with this, but he wanted her ready. "Remember when Mom took you to see Dr. Nance a few months ago?" After Mindy had her first period, they both agreed it was a good idea for her to have a checkup. They decided that seeing a female doctor for the first time would make her feel more at ease, so they chose Dr. Nance instead of Stephanie's doctor. When Mindy nodded, remembering, Walker said, "The exam will be similar but more involved. It won't hurt, but it might feel awkward. Just be ready for it, and I will be in the waiting room if you need me." Mindy knew that the interview part would be the toughest, but she felt sure her story was strong. She understood the checkup was not directly tied to her claims against her mother's partner, but she would get through it to achieve her goal. Chapter 2. "Mindy, you need to go to the front office," the teacher said. "Please grab your things and head over, and don't forget to study for the quiz tomorrow." Mindy was confused. She hadn't done anything wrong, and her dad would have told her if there was a reason to take her out of school. She assumed the front office visit was about something routine. When Mindy walked into the front office, the attendance clerk quickly pointed her to a conference room on the side. Mindy had visited this room before for a meeting with a counselor, so she was surprised to find a woman waiting inside whom she didn't recognize. "Are you Mindy Cross?" the woman asked as Mindy entered. "Yes, ma'am," Mindy replied. "Please sit down. I'm Doris Clark, and I am your guardian ad litem. I will be here to support you while your parents' case is open with the Department of Social Services," she explained. Okay," Mindy said, taking a seat across from Doris. The unsure tone in Mindy's voice told Doris that the girl needed more clarity. Doris continued. "When a child is involved in a family court case, the law requires that an adult not part of the case be appointed to speak for and advocate for the child in court." "So, you're my lawyer?" Mindy interrupted. "No, but I have a lawyer who will help represent me in court for you. My job is to look into the facts of the case and give a report to the judge on what I think is best for you," Doris clarified. Great, Mindy thought, knowing she would have to share her story once again. Doris noticed Mindy's hesitation, but pressed on. "Essentially, I will represent you at most court meetings. If there's a trial related to Mr. Beecher, you might need to speak then, but otherwise, I will be there in your place for all matters regarding DSS. I will meet with you at least once a month until the case is over, either at your school or at home." Mindy was not concerned about the criminal charges against Mark Beecher. She wanted the case against her mother to be strong enough to help her dad gain custody if he pursued a divorce. Mindy's focus returned to Doris as she spoke again. "I have already read the police reports and the DSS investigators' statements, and I've watched a recording of your interview. You won't need to go through those details again. However, I have a couple of questions that I don't think have been asked before. Is that okay?" Shrugging, Mindy replied, "I guess so." "Great. I haven't been to your house yet, so I don't know the layout. Can you tell me how you got inside the house that evening and the route you took to your bedroom? You said you didn't see Mr. Beecher in the house before he came to your room, so it would be helpful to understand how that happened," Doris asked. Why does that matter? Mindy was trying to buy some time to think. Even though her claims about her mother's partner had been a sudden idea, Mindy had made sure to keep her statements consistent throughout her interviews. She knew from watching crime shows that any mixed-up stories could create problems for her. So far, she had done well, but all the questions had been similar, and the interviewers had been gentle with her feelings. Now Doris Clark, who said she was there to help, was asking something different. Mindy felt she could answer the question in line with what she had already said, but it would add another detail to remember if someone else asked later. Doris explained, I think this question may come up if Mr. Beecher's lawyer ever asks you about it. If I include the details in my report, it might be seen as just hearsay, but it could make your claims seem more believable. Mindy nodded and said, Aside from the French doors from my parents' room to the backyard, there are 3 other ways to get into our house. The front door, the door from the garage to the kitchen, and the door from the kitchen to the backyard. When I got home, I went through the side gate and entered the house from the backyard into the kitchen. Then I walked through the dining room toward the hallway that leads to my bedroom. My parents' room is on the other side of the house, but I could hear the shower running and thought my mom was using it. I didn't want to surprise her when she saw that I was back, so while walking to my room, I sent her a text. If Mr. Beecher was in the living room when I passed, I didn't notice him, but I guess he saw me. Right. I saw in the police report that they confirmed you sent the text message to your mother. How soon after entering your bedroom did Mr. Beecher come in? Doris asked. It couldn't have been more than a minute. I was just plugging my cell phone into the charger when I heard my bedroom door open. I thought it was my mom at first, but when I turned around, I saw a strange man standing in the doorway. That fits the timeline I had in mind after reading the reports, Doris said. Now, let's talk about your parents. Do you feel you have a close relationship with both your mom and dad? My mom and I get along, but we've never spent much mother-daughter time together. I like hanging out with my dad more. I ask him to take me shopping instead of my mom because he listens to me. I don't always get everything I want, but Dad explains why he can't give it to me. With Mom, it's usually just because I said so. Do you feel safe with your dad? Oh, absolutely. There is nowhere safer for me than with him. I know he would do everything to keep me safe. What about with your mom? Do you feel safe with her? Mindy thought about her answer. She wanted to express some concern, but not real fear. She wanted people to doubt whether her mom should have custody over her dad. Looking back, I guess I've always felt like I needed to be careful when I was alone with my mom. I never feel that way with Dad. It's like I have to stay aware of my surroundings because I can't rely on my mom to notice for me. For instance, the night Mr. Beecher came into my room, I never thought about calling for my mom. I just started pushing him out so I could lock the door. You don't think your mother would have protected you? Mindy thought about that. I wish I could believe she would have, but I don't. Doris slid a piece of paper across the table and said, Here's my cell phone number in case you need to talk to me. Can you text me your number when you get out of school, too? Sure, I can do that. Thanks. I plan to meet your mom and dad later this afternoon. What questions would you like me to ask them? Mindy paused for a few seconds before asking, Could you ask my dad if he plans to divorce my mom? When they were called into the courtroom for the meeting, Walker noticed that Stephanie was already sitting in the center seat at the defendant's table. He wondered where she had been because he knew she wasn't in the same waiting room as him. Not that he minded. The bailiff directed Walker to a chair on the right side of the table where Stephanie sat. He avoided her gaze and focused straight ahead at the wall behind the court clerk. He heard a man being instructed to sit across from Stephanie. Walker figured this was the man Stephanie had brought home. For a moment, he thought about grabbing the man and giving him a piece of his mind, but he knew he wouldn't do anything that could get him in trouble. Still, having the man just a few feet away was frustrating. Walker couldn't help but wonder how much Mark Beecher's bail had been for him to be free so soon. You may proceed, Mr. Russell, the judge said. Thank you, Your Honor, the attorney for the Department of Social Services replied. We are here today for a hearing regarding the Department of Social Services versus Mark Beecher, Stephanie Cross, and Walker Cross. The DSS attorney quickly went over the claims against Mark and Stephanie before informing the judge that they had not reached an agreement. The case would move to mediation in 2 weeks. The attorney also requested that all previous decisions from the earlier hearing remain in place, meaning that Walker would keep temporary custody of Mindy Cross, and a no-contact order would stay in effect against Mark and Stephanie. The attorney for the guardian ad litem stood and said, "My client agrees with the plaintiff's findings and believes it's best to keep things as they are for the child's benefit." The judge looked over the case reports and said, "It seems that none of the defendants have a lawyer right now. Is this by choice or due to lack of funds? I can appoint a lawyer for you if needed. Let's start with you, Mr. Beecher." Beecher began to speak, but was interrupted by the judge. "Please stand when addressing the court, Mr. Beecher." Beecher quickly stood and said, "I'm sorry, Your Honor. I have a criminal defense lawyer for my other charges, but he suggests I get a family law lawyer for this case." "What is your attorney's name?" the judge asked. "George Axelrod, Your Honor." "Thank you." The judge turned to the court clerk and said, "Please note that I am appointing George Axelrod to represent Mark Beecher." Addressing Beecher again, the judge explained, "Even though criminal defense and family law are different areas of law, I believe you should have one lawyer for these proceedings. You may be seated. Mrs. Cross, please stand." Stephanie stood and waited for the judge to speak. "Mrs. Cross, do you need help finding a lawyer?" "I have an appointment with an attorney this afternoon, Your Honor. I believe she will represent me." "Very well, you may be seated. Mr. Cross, please stand." When Walker stood, the judge asked him, "Mr. Cross, do you need help finding a lawyer?" "No, Your Honor. I have already hired the lawyer who will be working for me," said Walker. "Then where is this lawyer?" the judge asked. "I would expect them to be here in court with you." "We agreed, Your Honor, that his time this morning could be better spent on another legal issue for me." "And what is that other legal issue?" "He's downstairs at the clerk of the court's office filing my divorce papers." Stephanie Cross slid a note across the table for Walker to read when he sat back down. It simply said, "We need to talk before leaving here." Stephanie had forgiven Walker many times in her heart, yet it seemed that just when she did, another reminder of his wrongdoing would surface. Often, this reminder took the form of an anonymous card arriving at her school office, showing a picture of a young blonde girl, Mindy's half-sister. As much as Walker had hurt her, Stephanie didn't want him to think that she would bring someone else into their home. When Walker glanced at her note, he showed no reaction. After the judge decided that everything in their case would stay the same until the mediation meeting, Walker headed for the courtroom doors. Mark Beecher wanted to talk with Stephanie. She took a moment to convince him that she would find him after speaking with Walker, but she needed to do that first. Catching up to Walker in the parking lot, Stephanie stepped in front of him to get him to stop and look at her. "You don't have to say anything, but you need to listen," Stephanie said, breathless. "If you check the laundry room at home, you will find a man's leather jacket with a strange stain on it. In our bedroom hamper, you will find my blouse from last Tuesday, and it has the same stain." "So what?" Walker replied, trying to walk past her. "The so what explains why Mark was at our house that night and why he was in his boxer shorts. There was an accident at the science fair where one student's project went wrong and got everyone around it messy. I let Mark wash his clothes at our place since he doesn't have laundry facilities. His jacket needs to be dry cleaned, which is why it is still in the laundry room. I won't make excuses for what he might have done with Mindy, but I need you to understand that he has never been my partner. I may not respect you as a husband anymore, but I would never disrespect you by bringing another man into our home. I hope you believe me." Walker gave Stephanie a business card and said, "What I believe is that you are irresponsible, and I don't want my daughter near you anymore. Don't talk to me again. That's my lawyer's card. Communicate through him or not at all." Stepping around Stephanie, Walker quickly found his car, got in, and locked the door. He looked back to see if Stephanie was still standing there. She was slowly walking back toward the courthouse entrance. He noticed her posture and uncertain steps and realized she was crying. Good. He thought about what Stephanie had said. Walker had seen the leather jacket in the laundry room, but hadn't paid attention to any stains. He thought the man Stephanie had brought home must have forgotten his jacket or didn't have a chance to get it before the police took him away that night. The jacket being in the laundry room instead of on a coat rack or hanging on a chair might support Stephanie's story, but he wondered what difference that made. Walker took out his phone to check his signal. With 4 5G bars, he was good to go. He opened his browser and went to a cloud site he had saved. There was just one file. It was a video from 9 years ago that showed evidence of Stephanie's betrayal. He pressed play. The video showed their front porch through a doorbell camera that Stephanie had given him for Father's Day, just a week before the recording. A man Walker vaguely recognized was waiting to be let in. "Josh, what are you doing here?" Walker could hear Stephanie's voice from behind the doorbell's camera. "You left these at my place, so I thought I would bring them back," the man said, holding up a pair of women's panties. Stephanie laughed as she took them from him and replied, "Josh, I have several pairs. You should have just kept them until next week." "Maybe I didn't want to wait that long to see you. You left so quickly yesterday that I didn't get to say goodbye." Walker watched as Stephanie stepped onto the porch and gave the man a quick kiss. "If someone hadn't taken so long, I wouldn't have been in such a hurry. I barely made it to the babysitters on time." The man responded, "Your charm usually makes things go fast, but I guess I was more tired than I thought." Before stepping back inside, Stephanie said, "Well, it was fun, but I need a few more days to rest. You should go before Walker gets back with Mindy." "I thought you said they would be gone all day. That's why I came over. I figured we could have some time together before your husband comes home." "Not going to happen today or in the future, Josh. I told you in college that I needed variety, and that hasn't changed since I married Walker. You and I are just friends, and I need you to respect that. I remember saying that if you had the right guy, you wouldn't need variety. You always seem happy when you leave my place. The offer for you to move in with me still stands." "Josh, get real. There's no way I would give up my life with Walker for your one-bedroom apartment. I enjoy being with you, but look at you. You're a furniture salesman and not a very good one. Walker provides me with a standard of living that you could only dream of." "So, I'm just someone to you? Is that a problem, Josh?" "Maybe. In college, it was easier to keep things casual. But it's harder now. I want you in my life for more than just fun. I want to be with you. Josh, I am happily married to a wonderful man, and I'm not leaving him for you or anyone. I do spend time with a few other people, but that's different from what I have with Walker. School is ending for the summer next week. I want to find some days over the summer when I can arrange for a sitter for Mindy, so you and I can spend more time together. That's the best I can do." Walker stopped the video. He knew the next part showed Josh accepting another quick kiss from Stephanie before leaving. As far as Walker could tell, Stephanie had been honest with Josh and had not brought her desire for new experiences into their home. If that were true, maybe her claims about the incident with Mark Beecher being innocent could also be true. Did it really matter? Did Stephanie think that just because she never brought her friends home, it made her unfaithfulness any less wrong during their marriage? Walker had watched their conversation on the front porch live. He had been sitting alone at a table in the fast food restaurant where Mindy was having a birthday party. He kept the volume low so other parents wouldn't hear what his wife was saying, but he could hear every word clearly later that evening when he confronted her. "It's my life and I can choose who I want to be with," Stephanie had said in response to Walker's feelings about her actions. "What I do outside our home doesn't affect you or our marriage." Walker's mention of divorce only made her more confident. She laid out her plans for any divorce, wanting to keep the house and custody of Mindy, and even half of his business and support until she remarried. "Deal with it or you'll lose Mindy and a big part of what we own," she had said. The next morning, Stephanie watched him pack to leave with a smirk. When he was ready to go, she said, "Walker, if you walk out that door, I will file for divorce tomorrow. I'll make sure you won't see Mindy again until she's grown up. It's up to you." Her threats didn't stop Walker. It was Mindy's cries that pulled him back inside and kept him there for the last 9 years. He would not leave without her, and maybe now it would be Stephanie who had to go for good. 3 hours later, Stephanie was explaining the same situation she had told Walker to her new lawyer, Heather Young. "I don't see how Mr. Beecher being in his underwear matters," Heather said. "At least where the law is concerned. You let a stranger into your home and didn't supervise the situation. While it may show you didn't mean to cause harm, it won't excuse your actions. I'll speak to the attorneys about possibly allowing you to avoid registration with the state if you agree to accept a finding of neglect and attend parenting classes. Would you agree to that? No way, Stephanie replied. You forget my husband will use this against me during a divorce. The only reason we've stayed together as a family all these years is his fear of losing Mindy in a divorce. Until now, he didn't stand a chance of gaining custody over me. We need to keep things this way, said Heather. There's another possible option, she continued. DSS probably wants evidence against Beecher more than anything. If we file a private motion as part of your divorce to seek full custody of your daughter, DSS might drop you as a defendant in their case. From what I know, DSS lawyers prefer not to get involved in private matters. Should I look into that? So that would end the DSS case for me? Yes and no. You wouldn't be a defendant there anymore, but the claims against you would still be in their records and could come up as evidence in your divorce. You would have been accused but not found guilty. It wouldn't clear your name completely, but it might create some doubt with the judge based on how I present it and how your husband's lawyer argues. Stephanie thought about her choices and said, Let's go with Plan B. Remove me from the DSS case because that would also help my job. Being on the state registry for child abuse and neglect could end my career? All right. But unless you want to file for divorce yourself, we must wait until your husband serves you. Then we can respond to whatever he says about custody. If his lawyer files today, you should be served in a day or two. As long as that happens before the mediation hearing 2 weeks from now, we should have time to prepare and share our case with the DSS lawyer beforehand. What about Mark? Stephanie questioned. How will my removal as a defendant affect his DSS case? Heather shifted in her chair. It shouldn't change much for him. His situation is serious anyway. I spoke with George Axelrod before this meeting. He is aiming to have the findings against Mark reduced from a serious risk of harm to something less severe. But I doubt the DSS lawyers will agree since their rules usually require serious matters to go to trial. Wow, Stephanie thought. Maybe she had indeed put Mindy at risk by bringing Mark into their lives. Now, Heather said, let's talk about your marriage. You mentioned you've been married for 14 years? It will be 15 in July, Stephanie replied. Okay, even though it usually doesn't affect the process, can you tell me why you think your husband wants to end the marriage? Is it just because of the situation with your daughter and the DSS case, or are there other issues we need to address? Stephanie sighed and fidgeted before answering. Walker thinks I've been unfaithful. Have you? No, Stephanie said firmly. Never. Then why does your husband believe you have been unfaithful? Because I told him I had, Stephanie confessed. I made up a story about talking to another man, knowing Walker would overhear it. I wanted him to think I was unfaithful. When did this happen? Heather asked. Almost 10 years ago. Since then, I would drop hints or act in ways to make Walker think I was still being unfaithful. Let me get this straight. You've spent nearly 2/3 of your marriage allowing your husband to think you were unfaithful. Why would you do that? I had to get back at him, Stephanie replied. Walker only thinks I was unfaithful. I have proof that he was unfaithful to me first. What kind of proof? Stephanie took a manila envelope from her purse and quietly handed it to her lawyer, Heather Young. Heather opened the envelope and looked inside. As she pulled out a folded piece of paper, several photographs slipped out. She noticed a bright pink Post-it note stuck to the paper and began to read it. How did you get this? Heather asked. It was left on my car's windshield at school. I don't know who put it there. Heather read the note aloud. I thought you should know that Walker has another daughter. I will send you pictures so you can see her grow up without a father and remember the man you are married to. As she sorted through the photos on her desk, Heather realized they showed a pretty little blonde girl growing up. In the last picture, the girl looked to be in her early teens. As she unfolded the paper, she recognized it as a paternity DNA test report. The logo for a respected lab was on the top left corner, and Heather had sent clients there for DNA tests before. The page clearly stated DNA test report at the top. There was a reference number at the upper right corner. The first section detailed case number 338697, followed by a list of tests done. The next part stated the test subject as simply child and listed Cross Walker A as the alleged father. His test was marked with a specific number. He probably doesn't use his middle initial often, Heather thought. Heather skimmed over the DNA details to the bottom of the report, where the conclusion was stated, combined paternity index 830, 244, 467, and probability of paternity 99.99998%. Setting the report aside, Heather looked back at the photos. And you have no idea who this child is? None at all, Stephanie said. The photos come irregularly. Sometimes they are years apart, and once I got 3 in the same envelope. The girl seems to be about the same age as Mindy, maybe a bit older. She could be 13 or 14, but I've only received 6 photos of her. So, Heather said, focusing on Stephanie, you received this supposed proof that your husband has another child with someone else. I take it you haven't told him about this? I didn't want to lose what we had, Stephanie admitted. I loved Walker deeply. I still do. I feared that confronting him would break us apart. Walker is a great father, and I knew he wouldn't abandon or neglect a child. I worried about how this other daughter would affect his relationship with Mindy. I couldn't risk it. I can understand that a bit, Heather remarked. But trying to hurt your husband with lies about your own actions could backfire. I need to think carefully about your situation while we wait for you to be served. Is there anything more to share about your marriage? I can't think of anything right now. Is there a way I can see my daughter? I'll do my best. The no-contact order is strict, and it seems unnecessary in your case now that the interview is done. I will ask the court to change it to no unsupervised contact until the mediation hearing, and I believe the judge will agree. I will also inform your husband's lawyer so they can prepare him. Then, we just need to work out the visiting details through our clients. I suggest you avoid direct contact with your husband. Communicate through me, and I will pass along your messages. Could you send a message to Walker through his lawyer for me now? What message? Just tell him I am very sorry. It feels like a lot, yet maybe not enough, but I need him to hear it. As I mentioned before, the accusations from DSS against your wife aren't likely to help you get full custody of your daughter. They are mostly administrative and not criminal. However, you have some advantages. DSS sees you as the best protector for your daughter, and she is old enough to express her choice for her main caregiver. Jacob Tucker doesn't hold back with his clients, Walker thought. He appreciated that honesty, as having a straightforward lawyer made him feel secure. Jacob asked, "Did you bring the financial records?" Walker handed him a flash drive. "Everything is on here. Let me know if you need any help understanding it or explanations for the investments." It's great to have an accountant as a client, Jacob thought. The clear organization in these digital files would save him a lot of time. Fewer billable hours are good, but some things are worth it. "No surprises?" the lawyer asked. "I don't think so," Walker replied. "I followed your advice about splitting things evenly and kept all the transactions clear. I'm not trying to take anything from Stephanie. I just want her out of my life and Mindy's life as much as the court allows." Jacob nodded. "I understand. Let's review your relationship to see if anything in your past is important for our custody case. How far back do you want to go? Starting from the beginning would be best. How did you meet your wife? We met at Clemson during a mixer at a fraternity after a basketball game. From the first moment I saw Stephanie, I felt she was the one for me." "Your what?" "My gibbon," Walker explained. "Gibbons are one of the few animals that stay with one partner for life. I thought Stephanie and I would be like them. For the first 5 years of our marriage, I felt she shared that belief. Then I found out she enjoyed other options, as she called it." "Ah, yes. The doorbell video. I saw it. You mentioned before that you have DNA test results showing you are your daughter's biological father. You should give me a copy in case your wife questions your role as her father. It's not uncommon in custody battles." Walker nodded and smiled a little. "You know what's really strange? I still care for her. I mean, I dislike what she's done, but I still love the Stephanie I connected with all those years ago. Does that make sense?" "About 95% of the divorces I deal with involve two people who still care for each other," Jacob admitted. "When it comes to staying together, it's like the old Tina Turner song, 'What's love got to do with it?' Do you know who your wife might hire as her lawyer? No, but I gave her one of your cards so she can let whoever she chooses know that you're my attorney. I assume they will contact you once Stephanie is served. Do you think that will happen tomorrow? Yes. I hired someone to deliver the papers and shared your request on how your wife should be served. He will be waiting for her when she arrives at work and will approach her in the parking lot before she goes inside. Since we don't know where she lives, I think this is the most discreet way to do it. I hope she sees that and appreciates your thoughtfulness. Walker shrugged. It doesn't matter. I will know and can explain my actions to Mindy if needed. What do you think we should expect from Stephanie and her lawyer once they look over the documents and our proposal? His lawyer shrugged too. I don't like to guess about these things. However, your offer is quite fair. With divorces involving children, custody is often the main issue. Expect the judge to appoint a neutral attorney as Mindy's guardian ad litem, and both you and your wife will share the cost. You're asking for full custody of your daughter with regular visitations for your wife. The guardian ad litem will meet with you, your wife, and your daughter, along with maybe a few friends and family, before giving the court a report about what's best for the child. That report will be very important when the judge makes a decision about custody. Mindy already has a guardian ad litem, Walker mentioned. Her name is Doris Clark. I haven't met her yet, but we've talked on the phone. That's a different guardian ad litem, Jacob explained. This one is a volunteer assigned by the state when there's a case involving a child. There are also other guardians for vulnerable adults. If the judge assigns an attorney as a guardian ad litem in a private divorce, the volunteers are usually released from the case. Sounds complicated, Walker said. What about counseling? Should I agree to it or can I decline if it's asked of me? Again, I don't want to make assumptions. Since your wife will be served on a Friday, I wouldn't expect to hear from her lawyer until early next week. If we can arrange a meeting of everyone later next week, would you be available? I should be, Walker replied. I can adjust my schedule easily. Did something really happen like that? Jocelyn asked, surprised. Mindy nodded seriously. Yes, during my checkup, the doctor said they were looking for signs of something. It felt uncomfortable and made me feel sick. Her friend winced, but asked, But you said that the questioning went all right? It went well enough for them to trust me, Mindy assured her. I'm really glad you noticed that person following my mom home. I don't get many chances to be at home with my mom when my dad isn't around. I'm probably happier, Jocelyn said. The idea of taking some of my mom's wine for you to drink had too many risks that could have stopped us from seeing each other. From the first night Mindy spent at her new friend's house, the two girls talked about the lack of warmth and affection between Mindy's parents compared to Jocelyn's. In the weeks that followed, they agreed that Mindy's parents seemed to stay together only for her sake, and neither of them appeared happy. This situation was affecting Mindy's happiness. Even if Mindy could convince her parents that they would be better off if they separated, she also needed to show that her father should be the one she lived with most of the time. Mindy loved her mom, but she admired her dad deeply. Without strong reasons for a judge to see her dad as the better parent, Mindy wasn't willing to disrupt things with her parents. Finding those strong reasons was the challenge for Mindy and Jocelyn. It had to be something that only pointed to her mom, with no blame on her dad. That meant it had to be something that happened only when Mindy was with her mom, but those moments alone were rare. Jocelyn thought it might be difficult to ask her parents for advice on what reasons could lead to one parent not getting custody. Luckily, Jocelyn had an aunt who was single and had a job that often put her in contact with social workers. This meant she had some useful information about what might affect custody matters. With her aunt's advice, as soon as Mindy heard about her dad's upcoming business trip, she and Jocelyn started planning. Their plan was for Mindy to visit Jocelyn's house after school. Before Jocelyn's parents came home, she would take a bottle of wine from her mom's collection and hide it in Mindy's backpack. When Mindy got home with the wine, she would set an alarm for 5 a.m. and prepare for school early. Once she was ready, she would drink the wine and go to school looking obviously unwell. Since her father would be away, her mother would take the blame for how Mindy seemed. Although it might be hard to prove that her mother had allowed Mindy to drink, it was likely that her mom could face some sort of neglect charge. Nothing serious, just something that could influence the custody decision in favor of her dad. Mindy didn't like the idea of drinking the wine for a few reasons. First, From what she heard from older kids, drinking enough wine to pull this off might make her feel sick, and Mindy did not like being sick at all. The second reason was the impact on her reputation at school. She was a top student and respected by all the teachers and staff, and she didn't want to lose that respect. Thoughts of whether her mom had been unfaithful to her dad crept into Mindy's mind when she noticed how different both parents acted in public. Her father was always kind and respectful to women they met outside, but he never disrespected Mindy or her mom. Mindy's mom, however, often acted playfully with men. Mindy found it funny that the more her mother showed off to others, the more her dad seemed to ignore her. One day, after taking the kitchen trash out, Mindy's friend Jocelyn came running up to her, barely able to keep her voice down. Jocelyn had seen Mindy's mom pull her car into the garage, and right away, another car followed and parked behind her. Mindy's heart raced as her friend described how a man got out of the other car and met her mom in the garage. Before the garage door closed, Jocelyn saw the man and Mindy's mom laughing, taking off their jackets, and heading toward the house. With Mindy's dad gone for the night, they guessed her mom had brought a guest home. But what about Mindy? Her mom knew Mindy wouldn't be home until later, but what if Mindy showed up while her mom was with someone else? Mindy and Jocelyn didn't really know how long someone might stay, but they had heard the term quick visit. They planned for Mindy to call her mom and say she wanted to spend the night at Jocelyn's, giving her mom more time with her guest. After 10 minutes, Mindy would sneak back home. As she quietly entered the kitchen from the backyard, Mindy realized the noise from the washing machine would cover any sound from the back door. She quickly moved to the opening between the kitchen and dining room, listening carefully. She focused on her parents' bedroom, thinking that might be where things were happening. She heard only the soft sound of a shower running. Turning back to the kitchen, Mindy spotted a man in the living room wearing only blue striped boxers, busy on his phone. It was the man her mom had brought home. Mindy carefully moved to the laundry room and called Jocelyn. She explained everything and asked what to do if she couldn't get the pictures she wanted. Within 5 minutes, they came up with a new plan. Mindy sent a text to her mom's phone, telling her she was home and starting her story. Chapter 4. Mediation wasn't always a polite discussion between the attorneys from DSS and the people they were dealing with, even if those people had lawyers. The DSS lawyers usually laid out their terms, and the other side had to either accept them or go to trial. Evan Russell's offer to Stephanie Cross, through her lawyer, was not acceptable in Stephanie's eyes, and she knew Heather felt the same way. The terms required Stephanie to accept a finding of neglect regarding her daughter. This meant her name would go into a state registry, and she had to agree to a mental health evaluation and follow all recommendations, including counseling and completing a parenting skills course approved by DSS. Until she met these conditions, she wouldn't have unsupervised visits with Mindy. "You can't justify the claim of neglect," Heather told Russell. "My client did not let Mr. Beecher do anything wrong, either on purpose or by mistake, and you cannot prove otherwise." "Your client was in the house at the time," Russell replied. "That is all I need to show the judge." The proof required in a DSS case is much lighter than in a criminal case, and DSS lawyers often took advantage of this during discussions. Heather Young was not falling for it. "Do you have any history? Any past DSS cases that mention my client?" "No? We know you don't. My client has a great reputation as a teacher and a leader. Don't make things worse by bringing this before the judge." Evan Russell had only faced off against clients represented by Heather Young in court twice. Both times they appeared before Judge Brownlee, who was known to be very tough on DSS workers and their lawyers if she thought their case lacked real evidence. It had not taken much for Heather Young to convince Judge Brownlee that DSS had not made their case strong enough, and both had been thrown out as unfounded. "I cannot drop the case due to DSS rules," Russell explained. "What would your client accept?" Heather smiled and replied, "DSS rules allow you to drop it if this matter becomes a private lawsuit involving the defendant. My client's husband has asked for a divorce, and my client has responded to it. When we talk about custody of their child, you can be sure Mr. Cross's lawyer will bring up your case." Russell smiled back. "If you can send me those documents, I will ask the judge to remove your client as a defendant. Do either of those filings talk about temporary custody and visitations with the child? Yes, Mr. Cross is asking for full custody of their daughter, and we are countering with my client wanting full custody too. Until we meet with a judge, Mr. Cross has physical custody, and my client can only visit under supervision. Good, Russell said. I don't see any problems removing your client as a defendant with this situation. I will let you know what the judge decides as soon as I can. Heather stood up and encouraged Stephanie to come with her. She walked her client to the door and said, "Thank you, counselor. I look forward to your email." Evan Russell was messaging his law clerk before the door had fully closed. Send Axelrod and his client in next. He did not expect a reply, and he didn't get one. Defendants and their lawyers would only be waiting in a courtroom set aside for mediation or in the hall outside. His clerk was tracking everyone Evan would meet that day and knew just where to find them. Less than 5 minutes later, George Axelrod brought Mark Beecher into the side room. Neither man greeted Russell as they took their seats at the table, showing the tense atmosphere. Axelrod began the discussion. If you're not ready to talk reasonably, let's just compare schedules for depositions. Russell smiled and asked, Aren't you interested in what we want? Not at all. The fact that we are here shows you plan to make baseless claims against my client, and that is unacceptable to him. The police have not charged him because they could not prove the child's claims. While your department is willing to move forward with such weak evidence, the district attorney isn't. Evan Russell felt sure they would win against DSS. He didn't know that the charges against Mark Beecher had been dropped, but that didn't really matter for his case. DSS had a detailed report and a witness who still stood by her claims. That should be enough for a judge to support their case. What about the files found on your client's computer, which include images of underage children? Russell asked. It was easy to show that the computer was donated to a charity where my client helps fix laptops for kids in need. The police arrested the son of the woman who gave the computer, clearing my client of any blame for the illegal content, Russell replied. Well, anyway, I'll share the details of our findings so you can decide who to call as witnesses, Russell said. No need, Axelrod cut in. We will depose the minor and her mother. They are the key witnesses for our defense. What days do you have open in November? Russell shook his head. My schedule is full until after the new year. Axelrod pressed on. There are other lawyers on your team. Are they all busy too? Probably not, but this is my case, Russell replied. Let's see if the judge agrees with you, Axelrod said. Delaying a trial for your comfort places an unnecessary burden on my client's right to a swift trial. Do you want to contact the judge's clerk or shall I? Meanwhile, Walker was in distress talking to his attorney. She's counterfiling for what? He nearly yelled. Your wife is filing for divorce because she claims you were unfaithful. This won't change the case's legal standing, but it will publicly accuse you, which could affect custody decisions. She wants full custody of your daughter. So she can just say whatever she likes about me? Jacob Tucker asked. Not really. Her lawyer says they have solid proof of your infidelity. What do you think that proof is? I have no idea because it never happened. I've had chances, but I wouldn't betray my daughter by breaking my vows, even if her mother took a different path. What do you want me to do? Tucker asked. I can adjust our petition to include adultery based on the doorbell video, or I can let things go as is. I want to see this proof, Walker insisted. Can we make them share it before the trial? I'll call your wife's lawyer. Sometimes a conversation works better than going through formal processes, Jacob said, leaving the room to return to his office. Walker couldn't believe that Stephanie thought he could ever be unfaithful, let alone have evidence of it. When they first met, just months before graduating from their master's programs, neither was seeing anyone. Walker had ended things with his high school girlfriend over the holidays, and Stephanie said she hadn't had a steady boyfriend for months. For 9 years, he had believed that Stephanie's single status meant she held on to the variety she mentioned on the video. Once Walker and Stephanie started dating, they quickly became very close. After they graduated, they moved in together and got married just 2 months later. Walker began working at his father's accounting firm and earned enough money for them to buy their first home. Stephanie took a job as a substitute teacher and counselor in their local school district, hoping to keep their options open for starting a family. Mindy was born 14 months after the wedding, and Stephanie decided to take a break from teaching to stay home with their daughter until she began daycare. After that, they would decide if they wanted to have a second child. From all appearances, the Cross family seemed happy, healthy, and secure, looking forward to a bright future. Then one day, someone rang their doorbell. Walker never suspected that Stephanie might betray him during their time together, and he didn't know she had doubts about his loyalty either. Up until that point, Walker had shown Stephanie all the love and care that anyone could hope for. He had invested everything into their relationship, fully committed to their life ahead. No, Stephanie couldn't have any proof that he had ever cheated, because it just wasn't true. Even after discovering her unfaithfulness, Walker remained committed to honoring his wedding vows. He felt it was important to be a good example for Mindy. Sadly, he didn't believe Stephanie was doing the same. Walker noticed Jacob Tucker open the conference room door and poke his head in. "Your wife and her lawyer are leaving the mediation session at the courthouse and should be here in about 15 minutes if you agree." "Will they have the proof with them?" Walker asked. "Yes, Heather Young said they would bring it," Jacob replied. "Then I'm okay with that. I need to leave by 12:30 for a lunch meeting," Walker said. "That should work. Just stay here and I'll bring them in when they arrive," Jacob suggested. Walker nodded, took out his phone, and began checking emails. Stephanie always attracted attention when she entered a room. She had always been beautiful, and Walker still recognized her as the most stunning woman he had ever seen. As she took a seat across from him at the table, he couldn't help but notice the disappointment in her eyes, although her face was calm. He wondered what she had to feel disappointed about, as this situation was largely her doing. Walker continued to look at her while waiting for Jacob and Heather to get settled. "We've reviewed your counterpetition and have a few questions," Jacob began. Heather smiled and said, "We will do our best to answer them. What would you like to ask?" Jacob had advised Walker to let him handle the talking, so Walker kept his gaze on his wife and allowed Jacob to proceed. "Your petition claims that my client was unfaithful during your marriage, and you mentioned earlier that you have proof. My client would like to see this proof before we discuss next steps." Heather nodded at Stephanie, who then took a manila envelope from her purse and placed it in front of her before she spoke. "Walker, I truly believe that if a husband and wife are going to separate, it should be for something real and serious." She tapped the envelope with her finger and continued. "I have known about your other daughter for almost 10 years. While I have tried to forgive your mistake in my heart many times, my mind remembers the anger and betrayal each time I look at our daughter, Mindy, who is the most wonderful thing in my life. I doubt you ever meant to change how I see Mindy, but it has happened. I have tried to push down my feelings, but I admit I have not always succeeded." Stephanie pulled out another set of folded papers from her purse and placed them next to the envelope. "In those moments, the pain of your betrayal hit me the hardest, and I wanted to hurt you back in any way I could. Now, as our marriage is ending, I need to tell you that I have never broken the promises I made on our wedding day. Everything you thought you saw or heard from me was planned to show you a small part of the hurt your actions brought me." She slid the folded pages toward her husband and waited for him to unfold them and read what was written. Walker noticed the pages were old and worn, looking like they had been kept for many years. As he began to read, anger started to build up inside him. Stephanie saw his reaction and quickly tried to soothe him. "Do the words in that script sound familiar? I think you have a video of the performance you can check against." "A script?" Walker asked. "Yes, a script," Stephanie confirmed. "I wanted the performance to feel real, with just enough exaggeration for you to eventually see it was all fake. I don't understand how you didn't realize I had planned the whole thing. I thought buying you the video doorbell and insisting you set it up first would have raised some questions for you, but it didn't." Walker kept looking at the script, and she continued. "Then there were the comments about needing variety. You know that's not like me. I don't like things being different. I have set expectations, and I struggle with change. You know that because you've been with me." "Well," Walker said, "I always wondered about your remarks on my size." Stephanie smiled slightly and nodded. "I thought that would make you see it was all a performance. How could I really say those things when I've always been surprised that you can manage without issues?" Walker looked stunned. "You put on a show to make me think you were unfaithful? Then spent years hinting that it was still happening because you believed I had cheated on you? Why would you think that? Stephanie pushed the envelope across the table and waited for Walker to open it. This time, unlike when she had handed it to Heather, it only contained the DNA test report and a note. She was waiting to see how Walker would react before showing him the pictures of his other daughter. Jacob watched as Walker pulled out the paper, looked it over, and then turned pale. Without asking, Jacob took the paper from Walker to examine it himself. "Has this been checked out?" Jacob asked Heather. She tapped her briefcase and replied, "I have a document from Delphi Diagnostics confirming that the report you have is theirs and is still in their records under the test case numbers mentioned. It's genuine, and it shows that your client has a daughter with another woman while married to my client." Walker leaned closer and whispered to Jacob, "That can't be true. I haven't been with anyone else since I met Stephanie." Jacob whispered back, "Have you ever given your sperm or provided any for testing?" "No," Walker insisted. Then he remembered something. "Do you have the DNA test report for Mindy that I shared with you?" Jacob opened his file and found the DNA test report for Mindy and her parents. He placed it on the table between himself and Walker. Both men focused on the reports, ignoring the women across from them. Jacob noticed first, "These match. The genetic test has many more points than the paternity test, but if you compare the results for common areas, you'll see they are the same for both father and daughter." "Let me see that," Heather exclaimed, almost reaching across the table. Jacob quickly slid both reports away from her. She returned to her seat and arranged the pages for Stephanie to look at, too. "Where did you get this report?" Walker asked Stephanie angrily. Someone must have made a false report using his and Mindy's samples. But why? "Read the note attached to it," Stephanie said as she began to see the similarities Jacob mentioned. "What note?" Walker asked. "Check inside the envelope. It might have fallen off the report." Walker looked inside the envelope and found a pink post-it note. He took it out, read it, and passed it to Jacob. "Do either of you have any enemies or someone who would want to hurt your marriage by doing this?" Jacob asked. Neither Walker nor Stephanie responded, but Stephanie pulled some photos from her purse. She tossed them to Walker and asked, "Do you recognize this girl?" Walker quickly glanced at the first photo, which was the most recent. "Of course I know her. That's Mindy's new friend, Jocelyn." Chapter 5. Could today get any weirder? Walker wondered as he drove to his lunch meeting. While in the conference room, he hadn't had a chance to consider the possible effects of Stephanie's betrayal being fake. Maybe it was all a trick for her to get back at him for what she thought he had done first. Then there was the question of why someone would want Stephanie to think he had been unfaithful and had a child with someone else. The short note attached to the fake DNA test suggested it was sent by a woman who felt wronged, someone he had let down. Stephanie should know he wasn't the kind of person to treat anyone poorly. Still, she had seemingly taken everything at face value without even trying to talk to him about it. Why? There had to be more to it all. "You're not one to talk," Walker scolded himself. If he now thought about the doorbell video as if it were planned, he had to admit he missed clear signs that would have shown it was staged. He even remembered why the guy Josh seemed familiar. Stephanie had once introduced him as a member of the community theater group she had joined briefly while in college. Josh had introduced Walker and Stephanie to his husband, Howie. Walker was trying to understand how Mindy's friend, Jocelyn, fit into everything. He realized that Stephanie had not met her daughter's new friend yet. 2 months ago, he had gone to welcome the new neighbors and introduce them to Mindy. Jocelyn had only visited the Cross house a few times when Walker and Mindy were home alone. Jocelyn Greer and her parents were strangers when Walker and Mindy first met them. Ken and Gina Greer were nice, and Walker hoped they would become friends. They were about the same age as he and Stephanie, and their daughters quickly became best friends. There seemed to be some connection between the fake paternity test report and Jocelyn, since Stephanie had received pictures of Jocelyn growing up. Walker wondered what the link could be and what motivated it. He didn't know, and he doubted Stephanie did either, as she hadn't recognized Mindy's friend in the photos. Walker needed to clear his mind from the events of that morning and focus on the client lunch ahead. After lunch, he planned to gently ask Mindy what she knew about Jocelyn and her family within the short time they had known each other. Maybe he would take his daughter to Friendly's for dinner and ice cream. They often had their best talks over ice cream. Stephanie felt more confused than ever. If someone told her the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus were real, she might believe it. Walker had never betrayed her. He was as loyal to their vows as she was. Despite all the reasons she had to doubt him, she couldn't help but feel he was a good man. She sensed it from their first conversation. Walker valued honesty, integrity, and good morals. Why had she doubted him? Someone had manipulated their DNA records and tried to disrupt their marriage. They must have known that neither Stephanie nor Walker would accept betrayal, using a fake DNA report to create doubt. They had almost succeeded. If Walker had not returned that morning with a teary Mindy, Stephanie might have gone ahead and filed for divorce. It would have been heartbreaking for her, but she felt she would have stopped it before it was final. Her emotions were too raw and painful at that moment. She regretted holding Walker back through her love for Mindy, but she didn't know how to hold the family together and hope for a better relationship with Walker. She realized that Walker resentfully reacted to her efforts to bring them closer. He wouldn't even consider a casual relationship between them, which frustrated her, making her lash out. How many times had she angrily said to Walker, "If you don't want this, I'll just find someone else." She never did, but she knew those words didn't help their marriage. Stephanie felt lost and alone while trying to live with the man she had promised to always love. What a mess, she thought. Even though she had done things that might have pushed a lot of men away, Walker had stayed. He had ignored countless chances to be with other women. Stephanie knew how attractive Walker was. He was handsome and had a charming smile and bright blue eyes. Some people might think he looked too much like the perfect guy, but no one could deny he was good-looking. Everyone has their own preferences. Some like tall guys, others like strong guys, and so on. With Walker, it seemed like only two types of women existed, those who found him appealing and those who weren't interested at all. At first, Walker's looks intimidated Stephanie. She often wondered if they would even be together, if he hadn't approached her with that warm smile and those captivating eyes. She couldn't remember what they talked about on their first night together, but she remembered wishing their time wouldn't end. Look where they are now, she thought. They had left the meeting room unsure about the future of their marriage. Heather, their lawyer, had concerns about the agreement they made regarding their divorce petition and the ongoing situation with the Department of Social Services. They were still waiting for a judge to sign off on something that could take Stephanie's name out of the case completely. Without that, they couldn't consider things settled. Heather and Stephanie had mentioned to Walker and his lawyer that the DSS situation might not progress, hoping to create doubt about the custody situation should the divorce continue. However, neither Walker nor his lawyer would say clearly if he would still want to seek custody without any DSS findings against Stephanie. If he decided to withdraw his divorce request out of fear of losing custody of Mindy, he would continue to be stuck in the same situation with his wife. Even though Walker had never been unfaithful, would recognizing that about each other change things? Could they heal their relationship? Stephanie knew she couldn't do it alone. Forget this no-contact nonsense, she thought, pulling her car into a parking lot. She took out her phone and sent what she hoped was a clear text to her husband. Can we be fixed? Walker saw the message on his phone after lunch. He had missed the notification. Could they be fixed? He pondered. He had asked himself that so many times in their marriage without finding an answer. Loving someone who you feel has disappointed you is tough, but Walker realized he still loved Stephanie. They had shared many good moments together. Stephanie's laughter and happiness while being with him and Mindy felt genuine, helping him forget the pain he had felt in recent years. Stephanie could feel that Walker's feelings were starting to change, and she wanted to reach out to him. The issue was that whenever she thought about being physically close to him, she remembered her own words. It's my body, and I can share it with anyone I choose. Walker, however, didn't want to share. He struggled with this idea. In the past, when Stephanie had made advances, Walker had turned her down, and she would remind him that she had other choices if he wasn't interested in her. Now, Walker found himself wondering if he could trust her completely. He wanted to believe that the troubling video of the doorbell had been just a setup, and that Stephanie hadn't explored other relationships in the 9 years they had been married. He hoped the fake paternity report had lowered her trust in him, making her tease him with false hints of her being with someone else. But as far as he could tell, there had only been hints. Stephanie hadn't gone out with anyone after work. Her routine was pretty predictable. She never wore revealing clothes, and there were no unusual messages or calls. Unless Walker was traveling for work, they slept together every night. Walker looked back at the text from Stephanie and thought about what it meant. First, if she hadn't wanted to fix their relationship, she wouldn't have reached out. Second, by asking him to talk, she had put him in a position to respond, but he was unsure how. Should he respond sharply to end the conversation? Should he just ignore it? Or maybe he could find a way to reply that would keep things open between them. He decided they should talk for a bit. Walker: "Sorry, I had my phone on vibrate. Can you come by the house after work?" Stephanie: "I took the day off. I can come by any time." Walker: "Then come over. I'm heading home now." Before she could answer, Walker sent another message, hoping he wouldn't regret it. Walker: "Plan on spending the night." When Stephanie read his last message, she felt a sense of hope. Throughout their troubled marriage, there had been times when she imagined things could go back to how they once were, but often, when she sensed Walker wanting to get close again, she would end up pushing him away. Her university psychology classes had been some of her favorites, and over the years she often reflected on what she learned as she tried to understand her feelings about Walker. She knew that when someone feels betrayed, there are stages they go through, like sadness, anger, regret, and eventually trying to detach. She remembered that she often fell back into sadness the longest, and that her anger usually came out through her actions. Regret always came and went. What puzzled Stephanie was that she couldn't remember ever fully moving on to the final stage of detachment. She would never tell Walker, but he could bring in the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders one by one, and she still wouldn't leave him. Stephanie might find other ways to annoy him, but she would always be there. She missed the closeness they used to have, and Walker's rejections always affected her deeply. She knew that if she wanted to win back her husband, she had to let him take the lead in their relationship. She hoped that this journey would begin tonight. When Walker opened the front door for Stephanie, he was surprised to see she only had her purse. Then he remembered that besides what she had quickly packed when he asked her to leave, everything else she owned was still in the house. He stepped aside to let Stephanie in and then closed the door behind her. "Thanks for coming over," Walker said, turning to face her. Stephanie stood still, barely moving past him as he closed the door. They were just inches apart in the hallway. She reached up and placed her hand on his chest, right over his heart. "Am I still in there?" she whispered, trying hard to hide her happiness that Walker hadn't pulled away. Walker pointed to her chest and asked, "Am I still in there?" Taking a risk, Stephanie lowered her hand from his chest and put it in his left hand. She wrapped her fingers around his and gently led him into the living room of their home. As they reached the couch, she was about to persuade him to sit, but he stopped her. "Do you remember who we used to be? I've felt incomplete for the past 9 years. I've tried to move on and find closure, but I can't. Stephanie, you are part of my soul." Tears welled in Stephanie's eyes as she nudged Walker to sit on the couch. She noticed a look of deep respect on his face as the tears rolled down her cheeks. "Walker, meeting you was fate. Choosing to be your wife was my decision. But falling in love with you was something I couldn't control. You were, are, and always will be the best thing that ever happened to me. You should know that you are also part of my soul. I'm sorry for ever doubting you. Now that we understand everything, I see that the same reasoning I used to keep the test report from you and our family would have applied to the paternity test too. I should have realized it was impossible." Walker encouraged Stephanie to sit next to him before asking, "Can you explain that reasoning? Because I'm not following you." Stephanie tucked her legs beneath her so she could face him better. She explained, "I knew you had to be unaware of what I thought the paternity test showed. If you had known you had another child, you would have taken responsibility for them. I was sure of that. I worried about how that would affect your relationship with Mindy. I was hurt by the idea of your betrayal and felt it was my job to protect my own daughter. I wanted you to remain Mindy's father above anything else. Walker listened to Stephanie's words and could understand a mother's instinct to protect her child over others. I can't blame you for that, he said. But here's where I realize I was wrong, Stephanie continued. The same values I thought would make you step up for this other daughter are the same values that would have stopped it from ever being a problem. If you were too honest and decent to leave a child that you fathered, then those same qualities should have kept you from breaking your wedding vows to me. I saw you as a good man in one situation, but I didn't pay enough attention to how good you were in what really matters, your love for and loyalty to your family. I regret that deeply. When Walker didn't reply right away, Stephanie added, I promise you, whoever tricked me with that paternity test might have messed with my thoughts about you, but I swear that they never changed how I truly feel. My heart and mind have always belonged to you. If you give me a chance, I will prove this to you, now and always. I think we both have a lot to prove, Walker replied. And it all starts with us rebuilding trust. That trust has clearly been missing, or these misunderstandings wouldn't have taken over our lives and marriage for 9 years. Our emotions probably got the best of us, but we have wasted this time by not trying to move forward. Have you ever thought about seeing a counselor together? Because I know I have. I didn't mention it because I was scared of what might come to light. Stephanie confessed, Yes, I even had a counselor in mind for us, but like you, I was worried about what might happen if your other daughter came into the picture. Walker shivered as he recalled, The words from that video keep coming back to me. Just imagining another man being close to you in ways we've never experienced is hard enough. I felt like I was just someone to meet your material needs, not your emotional ones. For 9 years, I pictured you with him. I didn't want to hear more details. It would have broken me. She knew exactly what he meant. Tears began to flow again as Stephanie took Walker's hands in hers and cried, I am so sorry. I just wanted to make the pain brief for you. I thought I could show you that what was said wasn't serious. You have always been more than enough for me. I don't deserve all you have done for me. Walker handed her a tissue and said, I believe that now, but those images, even if they aren't true, are still stuck in my mind. I worry they will keep haunting me. And you think I wouldn't have thoughts about you being with someone else? Stephanie asked. I see pictures of a beautiful girl and wonder what her mother looks like when she is happy with you. I feel haunted too. So, what do we do now? Walker asked. Stephanie still held one of his hands, and he didn't pull away. She wiped her tears with the other hand, thinking about her response. We can either give up or really try to fix this. All these years I've felt lonely beside you. When you are ready, we should replace those painful images with good ones of just us. I've wanted to for years, but only when you feel ready. You need to want me as much as I want you, or I'll sense it. I think the thought of you just going through the motions without true feelings for me would be even more painful than what I've imagined. Walker smiled as he looked into Stephanie's now bright green eyes. You never have to doubt how much I want you. I like the idea of making new memories to replace the old ones that trouble me. Just give it time and don't lose hope for us, I said. I hope it's like riding a bike, Stephanie replied, resting against Walker's chest. Once you learn, you never forget. Walker wrapped his arms around Stephanie, holding her close for the first time in 9 years. I don't know about you, but I've remembered everything. Stephanie gave Walker a soft kiss on his neck. That spot always made him smile. He let out a pleased sound and pulled her closer. Her quiet words, I hope you won't sleep tonight, felt both welcome and promising. Chapter 6. You must be Jocelyn. Stephanie didn't mean to surprise the two girls. She heard her daughter come in while folding towels in the laundry room and wanted to see her for the first time since that night. Mindy's bedroom door was slightly open, so Stephanie peeked in to say hello and saw that her daughter wasn't alone. She had the girl from the photos with her. Geez, Mom, you scared us, Mindy exclaimed. Then she asked, Does Dad know you're here? Stephanie walked into the room with a big smile. Yes, he's the one who asked me to come. I've been here for almost 3 hours talking with your father. If things keep going well, I won't be leaving again. Now, would you please introduce me to your friend? Is this the amazing Jocelyn I've heard so much about? It took Mindy a moment to understand what her mom meant. Then she remembered that Jocelyn and her mom had never met before. It had always just been her dad. "Oh, right. Jocelyn, this is my mom, Stephanie Cross. Mom, this is my friend, Jocelyn Greer. I forgot you two hadn't met yet." When Jocelyn turned to face Stephanie, she really noticed how lovely the girl was. The photos had shown mostly her face, which was beautiful with her long, honey blonde hair. Now, seeing her in person, it was clear that she had a graceful presence for someone so young. Stephanie wondered if Jocelyn had done any modeling, as she looked the part. Jocelyn was taller than Mindy by about 3 inches, and at 5'5", Mindy also stood tall compared to other girls her age. Mindy was very pretty, but Stephanie knew that Jocelyn's height would give her an edge, except with boys their age, who often hadn't grown much yet and might feel shy around someone so tall. Stephanie walked over and extended her hand. "It's nice to finally meet you, Jocelyn. Please ask your parents if they'd like to join our family for dinner one weekend. I'd love to meet them and welcome you to the neighborhood." Jocelyn shook Stephanie's hand. "It's nice to meet you, too. My parents have mentioned wanting to get together with you and Mr. Cross, so I'm sure they'd be happy to have dinner with you sometime." "Great. Well, I'll let you girls get back to your homework or whatever else you're doing. I'd invite you to stay for dinner, Jocelyn, but Mindy's dad and I need to have a talk with her tonight. We'll just order pizza to keep it simple. I hope you understand. My parents are expecting me home soon anyway, so it's not a problem." "My aunt is visiting and will join us for dinner," Jocelyn said. Mindy looked surprised. "Your aunt is here? How long will she stay?" Stephanie wondered why Mindy cared about Jocelyn's aunt. She would ask her later. "She'll be here for the weekend," Jocelyn replied. "Maybe you can come with us when she takes me shopping." Mindy's excitement made Stephanie feel uneasy. "Oh, that sounds great. I'll ask my dad and let you know what he says. Mom, where is Dad?" "He's finishing an online course in his office, so don't disturb him. We can chat more tonight. Please remember to take your laundry when you say goodbye to Jocelyn." Stephanie smiled at Jocelyn. "It was nice to finally meet you. I hope we see each other again soon. Mindy, do you want your bedroom door open or closed?" "Closed, please." "Okay, sweetie. Don't take too long. The pizza will be here at 5. As soon as Mindy's door closed, Jocelyn leaned in closer. "What's happening? It seems like your parents are acting differently today." Mindy shook her head. "I don't know. This morning, Dad was getting ready to meet his lawyer about the divorce. I heard them talking yesterday, and he was really upset about Mom fighting him for custody. Do you think something changed? Maybe that's why he let her move back in?" Mindy shrugged. "That's possible. I need to talk to my dad alone before dinner. Maybe you should go now, and I'll call you later." "You could text him," Jocelyn suggested. "That way it's private." "Good idea," Mindy said as she grabbed her phone from the charger. "Let me take my laundry to my mom first, so she stays busy while I text Dad." Her mom wasn't in the laundry room when Mindy dropped off her hamper. The washer was already running, so she left her clothes and went back to her room. She thought about why her dad had asked her mom to come back home. Maybe something had happened during his meeting with the lawyer that made him think he wouldn't get full custody, so he decided to stop the divorce. Mindy expected her mom to be pleased about getting the upper hand, but that wasn't how it had seemed earlier. Her mom had been warm and happy, especially when she talked about moving back home. This didn't feel temporary either. Her mom talked about meeting Jocelyn's parents and having dinner with them soon. That made it sound like she believed she and Mindy's dad would be living together for a while. Plus, her mom was doing laundry like she had taken her place in the house, not like a guest. As she walked past the dining room, Mindy stopped. Something was different. She looked around the room and noticed the pictures on the walls. A photo was now hanging there that she hadn't seen in years. Where there had been a beach painting, there was now a large photo of her parents. Mindy remembered that picture. It was taken on their wedding day, showing them leaving the church right after the ceremony. Instead of throwing rice at the newlyweds, the guests were given tiny bottles of bubbles. The air around Mindy's mother's bright face was filled with sparkling bubbles. Mindy noticed her father, slightly behind her mother, looking at her with a warm, loving gaze. This made Mindy miss how much her parents used to share that special look. The old photograph brought back memories of how happy they once were together. It felt important that this picture appeared now that her mother had come home. It reminded Mindy of a memory she had almost forgotten. It was her parents' 4th anniversary. Her mother had opened a bottle of bubbles from their wedding day and let Mindy blow bubbles around her. Then her parents took turns blowing bubbles for their daughter. It was a happy time, one of the last joyful moments Mindy remembered sharing with them. She wished 5 o'clock would come quickly. Going back to her room, Mindy grabbed her phone from the charger. "Dad, what happened today for Mom to be here?" After a short pause, her dad replied, probably waiting for a moment in his online class. "We'll talk at dinner. Your mom mentioned we're having pizza, right?" "Yes. But can you at least tell me if you still plan to get a divorce?" "Your mother is here because I asked her to be. We'll explain everything at dinner. I need to finish this course first, so please wait for now." Mindy, like most 13-year-olds, didn't have much patience. She wanted answers right away. Looking at the old wedding picture one more time, she wondered who had taken it down all those years ago. Must have been her mom, since she decorated the house. Now that the picture was back up, it seemed like a sign that something had changed. Mindy was not complaining. The picture reminded her of the love that once filled their home. Suddenly inspired, she rushed to the living room. On the mantel above the fireplace, there were now pictures of her parents on their honeymoon in Paris, and other photos showing their love for each other. Mindy smiled as she looked at each picture, feeling warmer with each one. It was clear to her that the absence of this love had been painful, and noticing her parents' sadness had made her believe they would be happier apart. She loved both, but her dad had always been kinder to her, so she would choose to stay with him if they split up. But now it looked like something had sparked a kindle of love between them once again. Mindy was determined to help that spark grow. "This is really sweet. Make sure to brush your teeth well before bed," her mother said as they enjoyed root beer together, which was surprising since she usually drank wine with pizza. "Sure, Mom." Mindy felt a glimmer of hope for her family. They were having dinner at the small breakfast table in the kitchen instead of the dining room. Mindy sat across from her mother, with her father at the end of the table between them. "So, is someone going to tell me what's going on?" Mindy asked. Walker replied, "Just keep eating and listen. Your mom and I will explain things, okay?" Mindy nodded and took another bite of her pizza. Her mother began, "You have seen enough crime shows to know what being framed means." Mindy nodded again. "Good. A few years ago, someone made me believe that your father did something wrong. They tricked me into thinking he was guilty, and I believed them." "What did they say he did?" Mindy asked. "That doesn't matter. What matters is that I didn't trust your father enough to believe him over someone else. It was my mistake." Walker continued, "Because your mother thought I did something wrong. She thought she had done something wrong too. We both learned today about the lies that hurt our marriage." Stephanie took over again. "We can't erase the past few years, but your dad and I are going to try to get back what we had before all this." "And," Walker added, "that starts with your mom moving back in here so we can all be together." Stephanie said, "We plan to see a counselor?" "Like a marriage counselor?" Mindy interrupted. "We might consider family counseling," her dad replied. "You will need to be part of this healing process too." "Why me?" Mindy's mom explained with tears in her eyes. "Because the lies I received about your dad affected my relationship with you too. I have always loved you, Mindy, and I think of you as an amazing daughter. But there were times I felt upset with you because of what I thought your father had done. No, that's not right. I didn't feel bad about you. I felt bad about what your dad reminded me of. There is a gap between us that should not exist, and I want to fix that if you'll let me." Mindy looked at her dad for reassurance. "Think about it, sweetie. Do you know any other girl your age who would rather live with their dad instead of their mom? I love you and want to protect you, but you need to understand that a mama bear is much more fierce when it comes to her cub. You haven't seen that side of your mom in a long time, and it's time for that to change." Mindy finished her pizza in silence, thinking about what her parents had said. Looking at pictures earlier had brought back happy memories, and now she remembered times when she and her mom had fun together. She recalled a trip to the park when a dog off a leash scared her, and her mom had reacted strongly when she found the owner. Her mom had always kept her safe, showing her the world, but also protecting her. When Mindy was younger, her dad worked while her mom stayed home. It was her mom who helped her take her first steps. "Mama" was likely her first word. From learning to use the bathroom to learning the alphabet, Mindy remembered her mom being there more than her dad. A mama bear and her cub. "I love you, Mom." "I'll do anything to make things better between you and Dad," Mindy said. "What about us?" Mindy thought about her childhood memories and what her parents were currently sharing. "Mom, why didn't you want me to go to your school?" "That was my decision," Walker explained. "But I'll let your mother tell you." Stephanie reached out and held her husband's hand before she spoke. "At first, I wanted you to go to Warrenton Academy. I would have been so proud to have my daughter at the school I led. Your dad and I talked about it for a while, and he convinced me that it wouldn't be good for you to be there." "Why not?" "It was because I was in charge. Warrenton has many kids from wealthy families who might not have treated you well. Your dad's opinion helped, and now we share a similar financial situation as most of my students' families. You wouldn't have stood out as much. But the real issue was having me as your principal. Other students might not have accepted you and could be unkind. We've talked about this every school year since then," Walker added. "Your mom even considered enrolling you under a different name to keep our family secret. But that would have meant missing many of your events, which your mother didn't want. She loves you and wanted you at her school, but she was trying to protect you from possibly being bullied." "Well, Mom, if Dad can handle you, so can I," Mindy joked, and they all laughed. "Okay, smarty pants," Stephanie said. "Wasn't there something you wanted to ask us about going shopping with Jocelyn and her aunt?" "I was waiting for Jocelyn to share more details so I could tell you," Mindy explained. "I think her aunt might want to take her shopping on Saturday, but I don't know when or where." Mom and Dad exchanged a look, and Walker said, "You're smart to wait. Knowing the times and places will help us decide. After meeting Jocelyn's parents, I think you'll be safe with her aunt. But we might have some family plans this weekend that your mom and I want to fit in. We'll try to adjust them around your shopping trip if we can." "Do you know if they will be looking for anything special?" Stephanie asked. Mindy giggled. "Jocelyn's parents said that since I got my ears pierced and haven't started dating yet, they will let Jocelyn get hers pierced too. I suspect that's what she wants to shop for, ear piercing and earrings. I think they will also look for things for Jocelyn's Halloween dance costume." "What is her costume going to be?" Stephanie asked. "There's a boy named Steve Harrington in 9th grade that Jocelyn likes. She plans to dress as a Hawkins cheerleader for the dance to see if she gets his attention." Stephanie looked at Walker, who just shrugged. She then turned back to Mindy and said, "I don't understand." Mindy sighed. "Jocelyn wants to dress as a Hawkins High School cheerleader from Stranger Things. It's a show many kids watch, and it features a character named Steve Harrington. The boy at our school is really popular, just like the character, and kids have been teasing him about it." Nodding, Stephanie asked, "What about you? Have you decided on your costume for the dance?" "Do you need help with that?" Mindy asked as she stood up from her chair. "Wait here. I'll get it, and you can tell me what you think." When their daughter hurried out of the kitchen, both parents exchanged glances. Walker started. "She seems to be accepting everything." Stephanie nodded. "I don't want to rush her, but we've missed so much. Maybe she would let me go shopping with her, Jocelyn, and her aunt." "I think you should suggest it," Walker replied. "I'd be surprised if she said no." Mindy came back and held up a T-shirt for her mom to see. "Cousins rowing?" Stephanie noted. "Why does that sound familiar?" The shirt featured big white letters above and below a picture of crossed oars on a dark blue background. The picture wasn't familiar, but the words were. Mindy explained, "Hello? Cousins Beach? This is Belly's favorite shirt." It took Stephanie a moment to realize what her daughter meant. She smiled and said, "From The Summer I Turned Pretty books? Wait, didn't they make that into a TV show? Is that where you got the idea from?" The Summer I Turned Pretty was a popular set of young adult novels that Mindy had read last summer. Out of curiosity, Stephanie had read the first book after Mindy finished it. That's why the words on the shirt seemed familiar. The main character, Isabel, Belly Conklin, spent her summers at a place called Cousins Beach. Mindy and many kids her age were likely watching the TV series based on the books, which explained Mindy's choice for her dance costume. The story wasn't really Stephanie's style, but she liked sharing something that interested her daughter. Maybe they could watch some episodes together, too. "I like it," Stephanie said, "but it's just the top part. What will you wear underneath?" Mindy folded the shirt and placed it on her lap as she sat back down. "Well, Belly usually wears just the shirt with shorts, or over her bathing suit. The dance is at night and it might be chilly, so I guess I'll wear it over jeans." "How about shorts with skin-colored leggings underneath?" Stephanie suggested. "We should find some that are a shade or two darker than your skin tone to make it look like you still have a tan." "That might work," Mindy agreed excitedly. "Can you help me find some? If it works out when Jocelyn and her aunt go shopping, maybe you can come with us?" Walker winked at his wife, noticing her wipe a small tear from her eye. He had always known how much Mindy needed her mother. He would never want to take that away from her. Now, it seemed that wouldn't be a problem anymore. "I'm not sure Jocelyn and her aunt would want your mom there," Stephanie said. "Jocelyn mentioned you and her aunt are about the same age. I just need to finish one more worksheet for homework, and then I'll call Jocelyn to see what she thinks. How does that sound?" "Sure, sweetie. Help me clean the kitchen first so your dad can get back to his work. I'll put things back in the fridge if you grab the pizza box and paper plates. They should fill the bag up so you can take it out to the garbage can and put in a new bag when you get back." Without saying anything, Mindy stood up, placed her t-shirt on the table, and started to gather the trash. She leaned down to grab her dad's paper plate and napkin and kissed the top of his head. "Thanks for the pizza, Dad." She had been on the phone with Jocelyn too long, and it was now past her bedtime. Mindy wondered why her parents hadn't come into her room to remind her. When she opened her bedroom door, there was no sound coming from the TV or anywhere else in the house, so she figured her mom and dad were already in their room on the other side. Remembering her t-shirt, Mindy quickly went to the kitchen to get it. Just as she picked it up, she heard her mom scream, "Oh, God!" Mindy stopped, curious if something else would happen. A few seconds later, she heard her mom's voice again, yelling, "Yes, yes, yes!" Mindy giggled, thinking it didn't sound like anything bad. She started back to her room, but before she left the living room, her mother shouted, "Jesus, I really love my bike!" Mindy thought, "This is too strange," as she closed her bedroom door behind her. Chapter 7. Shower with me? After the night they had shared, both husband and wife needed a shower, but Walker was worried about being alone with Stephanie since he feared it might be too tempting. He had felt this way before, but had always been surprised by how much energy Stephanie had. Walker had doubts about jumping right back into their close relationship so soon. However, knowing she hadn't been with anyone else since they married pushed all of his hidden feelings for her back to the surface. He couldn't think of a good reason not to be with the woman he loved. "I'll tell you what," Walker said. "You go ahead into the shower, and I'll make us some coffee. I'll be back in time to help wash your back. How does that sound?" Stephanie didn't want to lose the closeness they had rebuilt, even a little, by having Walker away from her. Her need to be near him felt as strong as it did on their honeymoon. However, today was different. They had a teenage daughter to wake up and get ready for school. As she pulled away from Walker's embrace, Stephanie said, "You should check on Mindy to make sure she's awake. Are you fine with skipping work with me today?" Walker got up and asked, "Do you want your robe?" Stephanie got out of bed and wrapped her arms around him from behind, kissing his back. "No, I'll go straight to the shower. Now please answer my question." Walker turned to face her and smiled at her radiant face. He realized how much he had missed that glow she had. He kissed her forehead and said, "Even though it feels like the end-of-year work always comes earlier, things are pretty slow right now. So, I'm happy to take a long weekend with you." As she stepped past her husband toward the master bathroom, Stephanie replied, "Good. Things are slow at school too, so it's a great chance for me to take a long weekend too. Hurry back, dear." Walker quickly put on his robe and left the bedroom. Walking out, he recalled how they used to spend all night together. He remembered something Stephanie had said during their honeymoon. "If we're going to spend a lot of time in bed, I want it to mean something." She had certainly made those moments special, just like last night. After turning on the shower, Stephanie stood in front of the mirror and looked at her reflection. She had wondered if Walker had left some marks on her during the night, and looking closely confirmed her thoughts. She smiled at the marks, knowing they were in places only she and Walker would see. This morning, she felt confident that Walker knew about her love and commitment to him. She would do anything to show her devotion to him and their daughter. As she placed a hand on her stomach, she smiled wider while thinking about the date. She hadn't used any birth control in over 9 years, and her cycle had been quite regular. Plus, women in her family had always been known to have many children. Yes, she thought. Something could have happened last night. She would need to talk to Walker about this soon. The warm water of the shower felt good on her skin, and it reminded her of their special moments together. While the warm water washed over her, she felt Walker join her but didn't hear him come in. She felt a gentle touch on her back and smiled. "Can we wait until after Mindy leaves for school? I won't apologize for showing my feelings, but it's not urgent right now. Are you ready for me to wash your back? Let me wash my hair first, and then you can wash my back while I use the conditioner. Are you warm enough?" Walker stepped back and said, "I'm fine. Take your time." He was in no rush for the beautiful sight before him to end. At 37, Stephanie still looked great in everything she owned from their wedding day. Her slim and athletic figure was a mix of good genes and her love for tennis. Walker noticed that Stephanie's long, shiny hair, usually a chestnut color, looked darker when wet. Stephanie had beautiful long hair that reached halfway down her back. It was full and rich. Walker helped his wife wash her hair in the shower. He gently applied the shampoo and massaged her scalp. The caring way he touched her brought a tear of joy to Stephanie's eyes. This felt like the old days again. This was them. The close couple they used to be before 9 difficult years had changed things. She knew she would never let that connection slip away again. After a few quiet minutes, Stephanie said, "That new tankless water heater you installed is really paying off now." Walker smiled. "I told you it would be better than just getting a bigger old one. Mindy is probably in her shower right now, and none of us will notice any drop in hot water." Stephanie worked conditioner through her hair. "We have plenty of hot water, but we do not have all day. I still need to make breakfast for Mindy and get her ready for school." She turned her back to him. "If your offer to wash my back still stands..." Walker used his hands to gently wash her back. They enjoyed the warm moment together as a loving couple. Later at breakfast, Stephanie's face turned bright red when Mindy asked about the new bike her dad had mentioned the night before. "Riding a bike is something you learn once and never forget," Stephanie explained to their daughter. Mindy grinned. "Are you saying you and Dad were remembering how to ride bikes last night?" Walker laughed as Stephanie stuck her tongue out at Mindy in playful embarrassment. She then said, "Well, Miss Smarty Pants, you obviously forgot. Those sounds used to happen a lot in this house, and you can expect to hear them more in the future. Now might be a good time to get me a new Bluetooth headset, Dad, one that blocks out noise really well. Finish your French toast," Stephanie told her daughter, "and soon you might be able to buy your own headset with the money you earn from your new job." Mindy quickly chewed a bite before asking, "What new job?" Stephanie smiled at her husband, who was quietly enjoying the scene with a grin on his face. He raised his eyebrows, wanting to know what she meant. She held up a finger, telling him to wait a moment. She spoke to Mindy. "Well, it's not certain yet, but hopefully in about 9 months you will have a new job." Walker's eyes widened and his smile grew bigger. He stayed quiet, letting Stephanie share her news. Mindy thought about what her mother said before responding. "In 9 months, I'll still only be 14. I can't get a work permit until I'm 16. What kind of job would I have without a work permit? The job will be taking care of your new brother or sister. It will probably be the best job you have until you become a mother yourself." "You're pregnant?" Mindy shouted. Stephanie laughed at her daughter's excitement, but stopped when she saw the confused look on Walker's face. She shrugged and explained, "It's not certain, but based on timing and other factors, my bike ride last night could mean it's possible. We'll have to wait a few more weeks to see, but would either of you mind if I have another baby?" "Of course not," Mindy said quickly before her dad could answer. "Have 2 or 3. I will happily take care of all of them." Whoa, slow down, Walker said with a laugh. Your mom and I need time to talk about a few things before we think about adding on to the house for all your future siblings. Mindy smiled and said, I can't wait to tell Jocelyn that I might be getting a brother or sister. She says that her parents have talked about a new baby too. Wouldn't it be cool if our moms had babies at the same time? Stephanie glanced at Walker, who nodded slightly. They had talked about how to ask Mindy questions about Jocelyn and her family that could help explain why Jocelyn's pictures were used in the hoax. This felt like a chance to start asking, but it couldn't go on too long since Mindy needed to get to school soon. What kind of work does Jocelyn's mom do? Stephanie asked. Some jobs are better for having a baby than others. She's a doctor, Mindy replied, but not one who sees patients. She works with those who have passed away. I don't remember what it's called, but they moved here when she got hired as the county's deputy medical examiner. She's a pathologist? Walker asked. Yeah, that's it, Mindy said excitedly. She's a pathologist. Walker nodded. They moved here from Charleston, if I remember correctly, from when I met them. Yeah, Jocelyn's mom used to teach at a medical university there. What about her dad? Stephanie asked. What does he do? I know this one because Jocelyn says she wants the same job when she grows up. He does graphic design for video games and animation. Jocelyn says he's a freelancer, and that's where the money is. Well, I can't wait to meet them, Stephanie said. Please ask Jocelyn for her mother's phone number so I can call and invite them over for dinner. Mindy got up from her chair. I will, Mom. I hope Jocelyn has talked to her aunt about us going shopping together by the time I get home from school. Walker also stood up and said, I'll drop Miss Smarty Pants off at school and be right back. Stephanie quickly stood up and hugged Walker. She gave him a quick kiss on the lips, not noticing her daughter's surprised look. Mindy may not have seen much affection between her parents before, but she would see more of it now. In the school library, Jocelyn's giggling was attracting attention. Mindy and Jocelyn had convinced their study hall teacher to let them go to the library for class to work on a project. The real reason was to talk quietly, but if Jocelyn couldn't keep it down, they would be sent back to class. Mindy wished she hadn't mentioned anything about her parents and her mom's bike metaphor. She whispered, Shh! You're going to get us in trouble and we won't be able to talk until after school. I'm sorry, but did you really tell your dad that you and your mom could go for a ride together sometime? Jocelyn asked. Yes, and it sounds bad now, so just forget I said anything. I thought we were just talking about a real bike. Jocelyn said, Okay, I won't bring it up again, but it's still funny to think your mom might be expecting a baby. Yeah, that would be nice. Nodding, Jocelyn asked, What does this renewed closeness between your parents mean for the divorce? Have they said anything about it? Mindy shook her head. They haven't talked about it specifically, just that my mom moved back home and we might see a counselor to help us. It sounds like the divorce is off. My mom seemed sincere when she said she wanted to be closer again. That's why I asked her to come shopping with us if your aunt doesn't mind. I'm sure she won't mind, Jocelyn said. But let's think this through. What do you mean? If your parents aren't getting divorced, custody won't be an issue. But that means the claims you made against that guy are still there, and they affect your mom too. How will you deal with that? Mindy frowned. I don't know. I've been thinking about that since last night. How do I drop the claims without getting in trouble for making them? I'm open to ideas. I don't have any right now, Jocelyn said. But my aunt might have some suggestions. That's why having your mom with us while shopping might not be the best idea. We couldn't ask for advice if she is around. I was thinking maybe you could spend the night at my place tomorrow and go to church with us on Sunday morning. We could ride with my aunt and then meet your mom at the mall after church? Mindy smiled. And by the time we meet my mom, we would have gotten advice from your aunt. That's a great idea. Do you think she'll agree to it? Definitely. My parents have a work event on Saturday night, so it will just be me, you, and my aunt at home. My aunt actually suggested inviting you over so she could meet and get to know you better. She mentioned it would be her first sleepover in almost 20 years. I hope trying to find a way out of this situation won't ruin the party, Mindy said sadly. Then she smiled. But I bet my parents won't mind me spending the night somewhere else tomorrow. They seem really interested in finding me a babysitting job. How important do you want to make it? Walker asked. They were sitting together in the hot tub next to their backyard pool. Walker had his arm around Stephanie's shoulder as they shared a moment of closeness. It felt much like the cozy nap they had taken earlier that day, where one would snuggle against the other, familiar habits of their loving relationship returning. Stephanie replied, "It's important, but not the most important. The main focus should be us as a family and moving past the hurt caused by whoever did this. Finding out who that person or people are is less urgent." "I agree," Walker said. "What do you think about hiring a private investigator to look into this?" "Maybe. Let's think about it more first. I believe it has to be someone who may have felt angry towards either you, me, or us together. Do you have any ideas?" Walker shook his head. "I've been thinking along the same lines. Who was the real target? Since the fake documents were sent to you, suggesting I had betrayed you, were you the target or was it me?" "It must be someone who could access the original DNA test we had done when Mindy was a baby," Stephanie said thoughtfully. "Does that sound like someone we know? And what about Jocelyn? Where does she fit? This person must know her or have access to her pictures since she was born," Stephanie added. "So it's likely someone who knows either of us or both and knows Jocelyn too. Someone who could get DNA test reports?" Walker noted. "Not just access to reports, but access to 2 different testing places. The reports came from different labs. Whoever this person is, they clearly wanted us to be a part. But why?" "Here's another question," Stephanie asked. "The last photo of Jocelyn was left for me only a few months ago in late May. What do you think this person will do when they find out we know about the trick?" Walker nodded. Was the Greers moving here a coincidence after all these years or somehow linked? If they had stayed in Charleston, we might not have recognized Jocelyn from the pictures. And I wonder if Jocelyn being adopted is part of this. "How do you know she's adopted?" Stephanie asked. "Mindy hasn't mentioned that." "You'll see." Chapter 8. Mindy. "We're just arriving at the mall. Are you here yet?" Mom. "Yes, I'm in the food court at a table near Cinnabon." Mindy. "I see you. I'll be right there." Stephanie spotted Jocelyn first because of her height. Actually, she noticed the lovely blonde woman next to Jocelyn first, but since she didn't recognize her, her focus turned to the girl she did know. It was easy to find her daughter in the crowd. Mindy hurried over to Stephanie and hugged her. "Sorry, Mom, but plans have changed a bit. Jocelyn's aunt can't stay long because she has to drive back to Charleston this afternoon, so she's taking us to get Jocelyn's ears pierced before she leaves. Jocelyn's mom is on her way here to meet us." Smiling at the blonde woman, Stephanie said, "You must be Jocelyn's aunt. I'm sorry for my daughter's sudden changes." "I'm Stephanie Cross." The woman smiled, though her eyes didn't match her expression. "It's nice to meet you. I'm Peyton Lang. Mindy is such a delight. You must be very proud of her." "Oh, we are very proud of her most of the time." Mindy blushed a bit before asking, "Mom, can Jocelyn send your phone number to her mom? That way she can reach you when she arrives to see where you are. We hoped you could wait for her, and then we can all go shopping for leggings and other things with Jocelyn and her mom after her ears are pierced." Stephanie turned to Jocelyn instead of Mindy. "If the only reason your mom is here is to give you a ride home, please let her know I'd be happy to take you home and save her a trip." Peyton then explained, "Gina wanted to come with us but had to deal with something at her church. She plans to buy Jocelyn her first pair of real earrings to replace the temporary ones used for the piercing. She will be coming here no matter who Jocelyn rides home with." Stephanie smiled as she looked at Mindy's ears. Her daughter was wearing the earrings she had given her as a 13th birthday gift. Many people didn't know that the Peridot stones were the birthstone for August, but Mindy wore them with pride. "When is your birthday, Jocelyn?" Stephanie asked. "In June. June 13th, Jocelyn said. Stephanie made a note to remember that. If her mother didn't do it first, she would let Mindy pick out some birthstone earrings for Jocelyn. Mindy could choose between pearl, moonstone, or alexandrite. "We need to get going, girls," Peyton said, glancing at the time on her phone. "Give Jocelyn my number," Stephanie told Mindy. "Have her text her mom to let her know where we are and send her my number just in case." As Jocelyn and her aunt turned to walk down one of the mall corridors, Mindy rushed to catch up, calling out, "Thanks, Mom." Stephanie decided to check in with her husband while she waited. Stephanie, I miss you. Is there anything on your calendar for next weekend? Walker, I miss you too. I thought we might try to play tennis together again at the club on Saturday if you're interested. Other than that, I think we're free. Why? A smile spread across Stephanie's face. Walker had signed the family up for a local swim and tennis club soon after they moved into their house. Even though they had their own pool, he knew they would enjoy the tennis courts. For a few years in their marriage, they had been the mixed doubles champions at the club. They both still played, but not as a couple for almost a decade. Playing together again would definitely get people talking. Stephanie, I'd love to play tennis, but let's do it on Saturday morning. I want to invite Jocelyn's parents over that afternoon if that's okay with you. Walker, I'll book us a court now. How does 9 a.m. sound? Stephanie, perfect, as long as the weather is nice. By the way, Jocelyn's aunt is quite beautiful. I'll need to keep her away from you. Walker, do you really think after everything we've been through I would ever be interested in another woman? Stephanie, of course not. I'm just saying how stunning her aunt is. I trust you completely. You've earned it and so much more. Walker, you've earned my trust too. I can't believe I feel this way now when just a few weeks ago I wouldn't have trusted you to tell me the right day. Stephanie, we're going to make it, baby. I know. But she didn't finish her thought. Excuse me, are you Stephanie Cross? Looking up at the unfamiliar woman before her, Stephanie's face showed she was confused. Yes, I'm Stephanie Cross. Well, it's clear where Mindy gets her beauty from. I would recognize you as her mother anywhere. I'm Regina Greer, Jocelyn's mother. Please call me Gina. This woman might see Stephanie and Mindy as mother and daughter, but there was no way anyone would guess that this attractive woman was the biological mother of pretty blonde Jocelyn. Walker's words about Jocelyn being adopted came to mind. You'll see. Quickly standing, Stephanie hugged Gina and said, I'm so glad to finally meet you. I'm sorry I haven't come over to welcome you to the neighborhood. Things have been pretty hectic at work and home lately, but everything is fine now. I hope we can get as close as our daughters seem to be. I would like that. I'm going to grab an iced tea while we wait for the girls. Can I get you anything? No, thank you, Stephanie replied. I'll wait here and hold this table for us. As soon as Gina walked away, Stephanie continued her conversation with Walker. Stephanie, Jocelyn's mom is here and I do see. We have a few things to talk about tonight. It was a school night and Mindy went to bed at her usual time of 9 p.m. Right after saying goodnight to their daughter, Walker and Stephanie went to their room, but sleep would have to wait. When Stephanie and Mindy arrived home, Stephanie managed her anxious mood with the calmness she usually showed in stressful times. Walker had grilled steaks and baked potatoes for dinner, which allowed mother and daughter to focus on Mindy's Halloween costume. After dinner, they spent a couple of hours watching episodes of The Summer I Turned Pretty to get ideas on making Mindy's costume as realistic as possible. Once the master bedroom door clicked shut, Stephanie felt she could finally let go of the nervousness she had been holding in since the mall. She pulled her sweater off, got Walker's attention, and said, The plot thickens. How so? He asked. Stephanie continued. Gina, Jocelyn's adoptive mom, confirmed my suspicion that Jocelyn is adopted. She didn't share details since the girls were there, but she did mention that her best friend and Jocelyn's godmother is the blonde woman referred to as her aunt. Walker, getting ready for bed, replied, That makes sense. A close friend can sometimes be more like family than actual relatives. I know, Stephanie said, but I can't shake the feeling there's more to Jocelyn's story. You've never met her aunt, right? No. From what Mindy says, this is the first time Jocelyn's aunt has visited since they moved here a few months ago. Why? Crawling into bed beside her husband, Stephanie asked, Do you think Mindy and I look alike enough to be mistaken for mother and daughter? Walker chuckled and replied, Yes, thank goodness. Mindy is lucky to take after you instead of me. I can't imagine anyone not recognizing you two as mother and daughter or even sisters. Lifting Walker's arm and resting against him, Stephanie felt cozy and at peace. Of course, no one would think of Gina and Jocelyn as mother and daughter, but Jocelyn and her aunt look like they could be related. Are you saying Jocelyn's aunt is her real mother? Walker asked. I'm not saying that. I'm just thinking there might be more to the story about Peyton Lang being Jocelyn's aunt and Jocelyn being adopted. Stephanie's head bounced on the pillow as Walker suddenly jumped out of bed, staring at her in disbelief. What's wrong? She asked. Think about a tall, blonde woman with gray eyes and a beauty mark near her nose. Now it was Stephanie's turn to look shocked. But I thought you said you hadn't met her. I haven't met Jocelyn's aunt, but I do know Peyton Lang. She was my ex-girlfriend, the one I broke up with a few months before I met you. Oh no, Stephanie sighed. Do you think... I honestly don't know what to think, Walker replied. Peyton didn't handle the breakup well, and we haven't talked since then. My parents might still see her parents sometimes, but they never talk about her. What should we do now? I'm going to contact Jacob Tucker first thing in the morning. He didn't think it was a crime to trick us since we weren't being threatened. He was looking into other ways to handle the situation if we could figure out who was responsible. Now I'm starting to wonder if there's a case for stalking if Peyton is involved. Stephanie shivered a little against Walker. I wonder why Gina never told me that her best friend knows you. Maybe it's just a coincidence. You get a fake DNA test meant to cause issues in our marriage, and then you get pictures of a pretty blonde girl for years. Her family moves into our neighborhood 9 years later, and she becomes best friends with our daughter. Plus, her so-called aunt is my ex-girlfriend. The surname Cross isn't very common. I find it hard to believe Peyton wouldn't have made a connection between your last name and mine. She knew I would eventually take over my father's business, and both of our parents are not too far away. This feels like something out of a strange movie. Stephanie couldn't argue with that. Instead, she said, I didn't want to bring this up, but I feel like I have to. What is it? She cuddled closer to Walker. When I saw the woman we now know as Peyton Lang at the mall today, it reminded me of a woman I imagined when I worried you might be unfaithful. She looked like the person I pictured you being with. I promise I haven't even talked to Peyton since we broke up in December before I met you. We hadn't been together for months before that. Please don't think I don't trust you, Stephanie said. I just mention it because it complicates the images in our heads. Knowing someone beautiful from your past doesn't help me forget those thoughts. I understand, and I have an idea that might help both of us with that. I want to hear your idea, Stephanie replied. But first, should we be worried about how much Mindy seems to like Jocelyn's aunt? I'm not sure it's really safe for Mindy to spend time at Jocelyn's house until we understand all these strange coincidences better, Walker said after thinking about his wife's words. I don't want to speak badly about Jocelyn or her family based on their friendship with Peyton. While it makes sense for us to watch Mindy and Jocelyn's friendship more closely, it could also teach us things we wouldn't know otherwise. Still, it might be better if they spend more time here than at Jocelyn's place, he added. We need to find out why they usually go to the Greer house after school instead of coming here, Stephanie said. Maybe that's what Jocelyn's parents have told her? Being new around here, I can see that happening. Walker agreed. We can ask Mindy about that in the morning. I've noticed there is usually no adult at the Greer house until around 5 p.m. when her mom gets home. With our schedules, one of us could be here when the girls finish school, which might encourage Jocelyn's parents to let her come over instead. Stephanie nodded, but Walker could tell her mind had shifted from the current discussion. He waited to see where she would take it next, and was surprised when she asked, Tell me about Peyton. You don't talk much about past girlfriends. To Walker, there wasn't much to share. He decided to give her a brief overview and let her ask anything else. Before I met you, Peyton was my only other girlfriend. We went to school together starting in 6th grade when her family moved here. Honestly, it was a bit odd. Our parents got along well, but they didn't seem to like each other's kids. Peyton's parents made it very clear they didn't want me around unless my parents were with me, and they often wanted her to date other boys instead of me. I remember some pretty loud arguments about that. Why was that? My parents loved you right away, Stephanie said. And I loved them too, Walker replied. My parents were a bit more accepting of Peyton, but my mom always said she didn't think we would stay together, and she was shocked we were still an item each year. So why did you break up with her? Stephanie asked. I grew up. I realized there wasn't a future for me with someone like Peyton, he said simply. What was she like? Stephanie inquired. My mom probably summed it up best when she said she's so focused on herself that she doesn't notice anything else around her. Peyton knew she was beautiful and thought that gave her the right to look down on others. At that time, my future was starting to become clearer. I was getting ready to join my dad's company and wanted a family, which didn't include Peyton. She never gave off the vibe of being a good partner or mother, especially compared to you. Stephanie laughed lightly. Yeah, right. Look at the wife I turned out to be. Walker gently lifted her chin so their eyes met. I don't want to hear that. Even when you lost your faith in me, you still fought to keep our family together. You gave up many years of happiness for our daughter to grow up with both her mother and father. Even though you were tricked into thinking I had betrayed you, you stayed with me. It wasn't always easy, but you did more than many would have, and I will always be thankful for that. God, I don't deserve you, Stephanie said tearfully. She quickly recovered and asked, You mentioned that Peyton wasn't happy when you broke up. What happened? Not much at first. There were tears, some harsh words, and some begging, but I stayed firm in my choice. Her parents didn't like me, and they took it personally when I hurt their daughter. It caused some problems between our families for a while, but eventually everyone moved on. Or so I thought. What do you mean? Stephanie asked. After we graduated, my mom mentioned it was too bad that Peyton wouldn't be graduating with us. She had become so sad after the Christmas break that she didn't return to school until the next fall. Did she attend Clemson? It's a big campus, but I feel like I would have recognized her if she was there. No, she chose to go to the College of Charleston because she wanted to continue her education at the Medical University of South Carolina. Her parents bought her a condo in Charleston, so it made more sense for her to stay there. Did she graduate in the end? I have no idea, Walker replied. She was certainly pretty, Stephanie said with a sigh. Walker chuckled and said, Anyone who saw you two together would agree that I made a much better choice with you. Stephanie then lay on top of Walker and gave him a gentle kiss. Now, what do you suggest we do to help clear her from my mind? Walker kissed her back, saying, As we talked about last Thursday, we need to replace the bad memories with new ones of us together. The challenge is that I can picture you in my head, and you can picture me in yours, but we can't see the combined image of us because all we think about is each other as individuals. Stephanie giggled and asked, So, should we put a mirror on the ceiling? Before Walker could respond, Stephanie's eyes widened as she realized what her husband might be thinking. She playfully moved lower down his body and said, I love it. It's us together.